Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 9th, 2016 meeting of the Glendale City Council. And I might add, to a packed house, an overflow crowd of students, parents, residents, and well-wishers. May we have the roll call, please?
Council members Devine?
Here.
Friedman?
Here.
Garpetian?
Here.
Sinanian?
Here.
Mayor Najarian?
Here. Councilmember Devine, will you lead us, please, in the flag salute?
Please stand. Place your hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for this evening's invocation. Our 42nd president, Bill Clinton, once said that, quote, "We all do better when we work together. Our differences do matter, but our common humanity matters more," end quote. As our nation begins to pay closer attention to the political races that will take center stage on our news outlets, social media feeds, and elsewhere, let us remind ourselves that there is still much work to be done in our local communities, schools, and neighborhoods. We should remember that despite our differences, we will achieve more as a community when we work as one and put our humanity and caring for those less fortunate as our priorities. Let us pray this evening that we will work better together despite what differences we have, real or imagined, and that we do so for our common humanity. As always, let us pray for our servicemen and women who serve to protect our nation. We pray for those who put their lives on the line to be kept out of harm's reach and return to their families swiftly. We pray for an end to violence and for peace in our time and always, for all humanity. Amen. Amen.
May we have your report?
The agenda for the February 9, 2016 regular meeting of the Glendale City Council was posted on Thursday, February 4, 2016 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. The next item?
Next item is under presentation and appointments. 3A is agenda preview for the meetings of Tuesday, February 16, 2016.
Ms. Beers.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, for February 16th, we do have a special meeting of the Glendale City Council, and it's a community meeting. This is our Work Boot Tuesday. And this meeting will be held initially here at City Hall, and we're going to be doing a tour of Duke-Magian Wilderness Park, a tour of Verdugo Park, Pacific Community Center and Health Clinic, and have an opportunity to observe the One Glendale Youth Soccer game at the end of the day. So that will commence at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and we hope to be back at the City Council chambers by about 5 p.m. that afternoon. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. And the next item, please.
Next item is 3B, Mayor's Commendation for Hoover Tornado Marching Band.
Yes, will Principal and the Director of the Hoover Tornado Marching Band, State Champion Marching Band, please come forward. Well, welcome to Glendale City Hall. We heard about your great achievement a few months ago, and we thought it would be appropriate to bring you and invite you and the students and the musicians to our City Council to get some much-deserved recognition. So I will turn the floor over to you, and you're welcome to say a few words and tell us about it.
On behalf of Hoover High School and all of the students that you see here, thank you for recognizing the achievement of hard work and perseverance. These are rare moments in a student's life to experience success on this level, and then to have the most important people in the city recognize it is very meaningful to us. We realize that we are the face of our school. We take it very seriously, and we also realize that when we travel to competitions around the state and across the country, that we are the representatives of our fine city, and we are very, very proud to do that. We wear the name Glendale, City of Glendale, on our jacket very proudly.
And would you please introduce yourself to those that aren't familiar with your...
My name's Martin Reese. I'm the Director of Instrumental Music at Herbert Hoover High School, and this is my principal, Dr. Jennifer Earle.
Good evening.
7 years ago, Marty joined the team at Hoover High School, and we both had a dream that he could build the program along with the families and the students of the community to something great. And they've done very well over the past 7 years. Success has grown, but the success this year was more than Hoover has ever seen in the history of the school. They didn't just win the championship. They won all of the categories across the entire competition, and that's something to be really proud of. This wouldn't happen without the families. I know you see the parents and guardians around this room right now, and Hoover Tornado Marching Band boosters and families spend more time than some of the paid faculty does at Hoover High School. And our success would not have happened without not only the commitment of Marty and his staff and the kids, but our families. I love you and thank you so much for all your support. I know you're all back there. So thank you to the families of Hoover High School.
No, don't sit down yet, Principal.
I'm sorry to continue the thanking, but we would be very remiss if we didn't recognize Mr. Johnny Harrison for his contribution. Were it not for him, we would not have the instruments, the uniforms, and many of the other things that have enabled the students to succeed at this level. So thanks to Johnny Harrison. If you would stand up and be recognized. Excellent job.
So it is our custom as a city council for us to, whenever we have a state champion or state champions in our sacred chambers, that we all come down and shake hands and give a photo op. But I would like to let you know that it's also a tradition that we distribute lapel pins to all the athletes and staff, coaches. Because there are so many, we have 2 boxes full of them. We'll give each of you a box, and you can do the distribution, because it would take us quite some time. And also a mayor's commendation, which you may display any way you see fit. And enough said, why don't we go down, and you can carry this box, Mr. Sinanyan, and you can carry this box. I'll take the proclamation. Let's all go down for a group photo.
Thank you so much. Thank you
very much. My wife Armina speaks Spanish.
So thank you very much.
Oh, this way?
Thank you. Nice to see you.
I'm going to go right where you are.
Oh, okay.
And here we're going this way.
Congratulations.
It's over.
So, right in the middle,
Yeah.
Mr. Reese. And I'm gonna let you hold, no, that's fine. You hold that. Thank you very much. Any parting kudos from my council members?
Outstanding. I hear you all rehearsing because I live close to the school. And no, we go out on our patio to listen because I love the sound of a marching band. And it's just magical in the evening to hear that. And you just have made us all so proud. Congratulations. I know how much hard work it is. So good job.
Congratulations. It's quite an achievement. I'm sure competition must be insane.
Yes.
So you've made us very proud. I was on the jazz band when I was in junior high school and high school, but what you guys do is much more difficult. So congrats. Very impressive.
Yeah, congratulations as well. Yes, I was hoping that you wanted to perform for us tonight. That's what we were hoping for, to put a little bit more life and energy in this room. But congratulations, you've done a great job. You put Glendale on the map, especially winning every category across the board. That's a great achievement.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everything you do for our city.
Ms. Devine.
Just want to say my congratulations as well. I know how hard you had to work for this because I used to be a sponsor for band and majorettes, et cetera, so I know that this is fantastic. And I have to make a comment about Mr. Kasakian's words because you are the epitome of working together as one. So congratulations.
And we'll pause a moment and let everyone exit if they choose to do so.
Welcome. Thank you.
The fire chief is breathing a little bit easier now that the room has been cleared somewhat.
Or let the ambassadors know when they can direct those. Thank you.
Tremendous achievement. 7 years, wow.
I assume there are people waiting to come into the chambers.
Yeah, I think there are.
Too
Waiting
empty
outside.
right now.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
wait
they're
for
waiting
them.
outside. People want to come in.
Okay. Okay, well, our ambassadors are handling the crowd control, and we thank them for that. Let's move on to the next item.
Item C is appointment of board and commission member. C1 is Garo Ghazarian to the Civil Service Commission. This was the nomination of Councilwoman Devine made on February 2nd, 2016.
Ms. Devine.
Thank you. And with council's approval, I would like to make it official the appointment of Garo Ghazarian for the Civil Service Commission. He's been serving for his first term and has been doing a great job. He is a criminal defense attorney and knows the law and civil service, and so I would ask council's approval.
Is that a motion?
That will be a motion.
Motion?
Second.
Second. Roll call, please.
Council members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Ghazarian, for volunteering. It's a thankless job sometimes. In fact, sometimes it's worse than thankless. It's a criticized job sometimes. But we appreciate you and all the other commissioners that serve our city all the time that you volunteer. Let's move to the next item.
Next item is the consent calendar, including minutes following our routine and may be acted upon by one motion. Any member of council or the audience requesting separate consideration may do so by making such request before a motion is proposed.
We have the consent calendar.
I'll move the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
I don't have any cards. Let's take roll call.
Council members Devine,
Yes.
Friedman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. Okay. See the bead of sweat breaking on the fire chief's brow once again. We have a full room, believe it or not. Again. Let's move to the next item 5, please.
5 is City Council and staff comments.
Okay, let's start with Ms. Devine.
Thank you. Last week I made a request, and it was seconded by Councilmember Friedman, but I learned subsequently that the microphone was not on, and so I just want to make that, get it on the voice record. So for the record, I'm calling this a neighborhood integrity measure. So I've asked requested staff to bring back a report that will allow council to consider a change in the height requirements in the C3 zones or areas which border the downtown specific plan. This change will only affect height. It will not affect mixed use or impact the density of the developments. It would change the height allowances from 90 feet to hopefully 50 feet or 35 feet. Council has enacted this similar zone map change in the past in the North Glendale Community Plan. And currently, staff is working on the South Glendale Community Plan and will be working on the East and West Community Plan, so I feel that this is an opportune time for Council to consider this sort of change. The goal would be to preserve the integrity of our neighborhoods, especially those in the buffer areas citywide. And I ask that staff would please bring this back as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Karpetian.
I have nothing to report except San Francisco was fun. Super Bowl and the concert the night before, and we had a lot of fun. We need to, those short time getaways are sometimes really, really effective. So that's all for this week, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank you,
Sinani.
Mr. Mayor. And Councilman Harpetian, I saw the video of your daughter performing in San Francisco. It was very beautiful.
She specifically asked me not to talk about it, and that's why I didn't. But thank you for bringing it up.
So I did it for you. On Saturday, my colleagues and I, with the exception of, I believe, Mr. Harpetian, who was in San Francisco, attended Ascensia's annual fundraiser gala, which was a beautiful event. And it signifies the fact that we stand behind social services in the city of Glendale, and that homelessness is a serious problem that we're trying to tackle, along with partnership with private entities. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Friedman.
Yes, thanks for mentioning Essentia. It was a great event. Just a few other community events I attended. I wanted to mention them to acknowledge the organizers. The Montrose Shopping Park Association had a get-together for their businesses. It was at Casa Cordova, which is an amazing little restaurant in Montrose off Honolulu. If you haven't been there, I highly recommend it. And there was a great turnout from their merchants, and we were able to talk about, some business even, and it was really nice for them all to get together and support each other, so I want to congratulate them. Royal Canyon Property Owners Association had their annual meeting. The mayor and Ms. Devine and myself attended, and they had, I think it was a 3-hour presentation, a lot to talk about up there, and it was extremely well attended by the community, and it really shows how much folks really care about what's happening in their neighborhood. So congratulations to everybody there. I was also able to attend, again with Ms. Devine, the Korean Federation of North Los Angeles' installation of their new officers. They do a great work in the community up north, and I wanted to congratulate them as well. And then in terms of the events, last but certainly not least, I think really the most exciting event for a while was the grand opening of the new Museum of Neon Art, which is finally open on Bram Boulevard. I'm sure that everyone has seen the beautiful new building with the diver diving off in neon. The museum is open. The exhibit is amazing. And there were at least 200 people. You didn't hear that from me, Fire Chief, but there were a lot of people in that space having a wonderful time, people coming from all over Los Angeles. I ran into someone I knew from the west side of Los Angeles, who came with some friends from the west side to see the museum. So I know it's going to be a huge draw and hugely successful. And I would recommend that everyone in town go and patronize this museum. They certainly need support. They need members. They need people to buy things in their beautiful gift shop, to see the wonderful exhibit. They're going to be changing their exhibit, I believe, quarterly, 4 times a year, so it will revolve quite a bit. And the exhibit that's there now is absolutely worth going to see. It's really beautiful. And they got a lot of press, from television press, from the news media, to newspapers, all over California. So congratulations to them. That was a huge effort for them to raise the money to get the museum open, but it was really a triumph. And lastly, there was another newspaper article this last week in the LA Times about an issue I've brought up before, which is rodents being poisoned by commercial rat poison that then makes its way up the food chain and kills predators, owls, bobcats, mountain lions. There was another article showing a very, very sick bobcat, I think in Griffith Park, that was just dying a horribly painful death because of this. Now, we did ban the use of these products in the city of Glendale by the city, which I'm very proud of, and I don't think many cities have done that yet. I would like us to consider banning it for commercial use as well. I don't think there's any reason why we can't ban a dangerous product, and if there was ever a dangerous product, it's this. And there are certainly ways of capturing rats and killing pests that don't involve using this allowing this dangerous poison into the food stream. So I would like a second for us to consider just a wholesale ban of this. We don't use it as a city anymore, but commercial pest controls do use it, and it's really wreaking havoc on the food chain. Would any of my colleagues be willing to second the discussion of this coming back?
Just to be clear, this is banning commercial rat poison?
It's only a certain type of rat poison. It's a second-generation anticoagulant rodenticide. It's not all poisons. It's only this particular type. Because there are other poisons that don't stay in the animal and get passed on from the carcasses of dead animals to others, and there's other methods, like there are traps that catch and kill rats as well.
I'll second the issue of discussing it.
And by the way, it's not just wildlife that's poisoned. It could also be a neighborhood dog or cat. If a neighborhood dog gets a rat that's dying from this pesticide, the chances are that dog will die. So this is really something that's...
I'll second your motion.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just have a few things to add. This morning, I was invited to speak before the LA County Board of Supervisors to comment on the new LA County Homeless Initiative that they have put forth. The Homeless Initiative is a multi-pronged attack on homelessness. In the next 2 years, the county is dedicating $150 million in addition to the approximately $1 billion that they already spend to combat homelessness. There are 44,000 homeless people in LA County. We have an approximate count of about 240 in Glendale. The additional funds that the county is dedicating will go towards rapid rehousing for those folks who have fallen upon hard times immediately, short-term housing, which will be a stepping stone for folks to get into additional housing, as well as about $10 million for disabled homelessness. The $1 billion that they're currently spend seems like a lot of money. The breakdown is that they spend about 60% of that, about $600 million, on mental health treatment. 30% is on welfare benefits, and about 10% is on law enforcement. That's how the $1 billion breaks down. They will be reaching out to us shortly for a cooperation agreement, and there were many other mayors from other cities of the county there, all speaking in favor, and we're hoping that this time there will be a great opportunity to put an end to homelessness. The second item I'd like to speak about is February 29th, Monday, Leap Day. We will be starting what I call the Glendale Express, which is the connection between the Orange Line and Red Line station in North Hollywood eastward to the Del Mar station in Pasadena, which is a Gold Line station. There'll be one stop. This is going to be a rapid bus line. There'll be one stop in Glendale, and that will be at Sanchez and Good Street, which is basically between Brand and Central and the 134 freeway. You can go west and connect to the Red Line and take that to Hollywood and Union Station, or take the Orange Line to go west to the West Valley, or you can go east and hit the Gold Line. The Gold Line then can take you further east to Sierra Madre Villa, and shortly, later this month, to Azusa, or you can take that also downtown. So that will be starting soon, and we'll give you more information about that. The last item is that I'd like to place on the agenda the nomination of Talene Shabazian for the Planning Commission. That's all I have. Anything from staff? Okay. Let's move then to the next item.
Mr. Mayor and Council, the next item on the agenda is community event announcements, the 3-minute portion.
Thank you. Do I have any cards?
There is one card.
Thank you. Roberta Medford and Matt Ganji.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Roberta Medford, Montrose, and I'm the current president of Glendale Beautiful.
And I'm Matt Ganji, the vice president of Glendale Beautiful and Programs.
And we're here again to let especially viewers, I know you all know about our upcoming Arbor Day celebration that we do in cooperation with Glendale's Community Services and Parks Department. This is a wonderful chance for $45, the price hasn't changed in many years, to donate a tree to be planted in the city of Glendale in a park or school area or other public area. Your wishes as far as location are, they try to accommodate them as much as they can. It's a wonderful way to memorialize a loved one or honor a person, group, or cause that you hold dear. And if you go to the city webpage, glendaleca.gov, on the event calendar, I think what's showing on the screen are pictures from previous Arbor Day celebrations. Anyway, on the city event page at glendaleca.gov, if you go on February 23rd, which is the deadline for the donation of trees, you will find a nice link, and it has all the information plus contact information for myself and other people, and the form to donate to contribute your tree, or the money for your tree or trees. And I'm happy to answer questions. So if you go to glendaleca.gov, you will find that information about how to donate. And Matt will tell you about the program on the 1st.
Yeah, we have a really great speaker coming out. Tree People will be there, and they're a nonprofit that's been working for over 40 years in the Los Angeles basin to create greenery and to fight against the effects of climate change. And Mr. Torrin Dunavant will be there, and he'll be speaking. He says he has a really important message to deliver about trees, the drought, and El Nino. So the event is free on March 1st. I hope everyone can come out to Arbor Day and be there, and also donate some trees to make our city more beautiful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Garbage?
I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you. What kind of trees are they? The one that we have a choice of trees, or how big are they?
I think that might be subject to discussion. The $45 gets you a standard size tree, and then also specimen trees are available that cost a little more, bigger. The city arborist, William McKinley, is in charge of determining the trees, and they will be appropriate to the setting, but input is always appreciated. And as I said, people's wishes are accommodated as much as possible. Obviously, there are trees that work in our climate, and as our climate changes. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Sign him up
here.
for the biggest tree you got.
Yeah.
What are the follow-up question? What are the sizes of those trees? Is it 24-inch bucks, 36-inch
the standard
bucks?
size comes in a 15-gallon, I think. And based on my experience as a gardener, I usually have better luck with transplanting a smaller rather than a larger growing tree. So, don't feel bad about sticking with the basic $45 because those work really well. But
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to say, for people that haven't gone before, what happens is when people donate trees, a lot of times, most of the time, they do it in memory of someone who they've lost, sometimes in honor of someone, like a child who's maybe someone who's graduated high school or someone who's had a milestone birthday. So it can be a very moving event because you've got people that are coming up to get the certificates for the trees, sometimes in memorial, sometimes as a celebration. And it's a really wonderful gesture, and you get whole families there to celebrate this acknowledgement of somebody's accomplishment or somebody's life. So if you have a milestone event like that in your family, it's a wonderful way to contribute to the community, but also to recognize that event. So I highly recommend it if you haven't done it before.
And I'd also like to say that the later next winter, when the trees are planted, people are always interested in that. The donors all get notified of the planting, and you meet with the arborist who tells you about the tree, and those often turn into very fun, moving, and just really rewarding events because big groups of people come and have their picture taken with their particular tree. So it's a win-win all the way around for a mere $45,
right,
or 3 or 4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta and Matt. I don't have any other cards for oral communications, so we will close this portion of oral communications, and let's move to the next item.
Mr. Mayor, next is adoption of ordinances. At 7A is authorizing and approving a lease agreement between the City and Glendale Arts for the lease of a tenant space located at 116 West California Avenue, Glendale, California. This was introduced by Councilmember Devine on February 2nd, 2016.
Yes, it was. I remember that. And Ms. Devine, would you like to make the motion?
I will move that item.
Second.
Second. If there are no other comments, let's take roll.
Councilmembers Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Next item, please.
Under action items, 8A is Director of Finance regarding second quarter financial report. 8A1 is a motion to note and file the fiscal year 2015-16 second quarter financial report for the period ending December 31st, 2015. 8A1, 8A2 is motion authorizing amendment to agreements with SoCal Office Technologies for the purchase and maintenance of copiers. And 8A3 is a resolution appropriating $1,963,079, of which $1,611,723 is a net increase to fund the second quarter budget adjustments to the adopted fiscal year 2015-16 budget.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. Very pleased to present to you our customary quarterly update, this being the second quarter or mid-year budget. We'll have our finance director, Bob Elliott, who's just returned from the disabled list, going to give you the presentation. But preface that only with saying that the budget that was crafted by the council and adopted this past summer is holding true, and with the good news we received by winning the litigation with the state of finance from the the state of California Department of Finance, we are right on track with where we want to be. And with that, we'll have Bob give you the report.
Can I just ask in terms of that, what is their window to appeal? When do we know whether they're going to appeal?
60 days.
60 days after the judgment becomes final, which we expect to be any moment. So 60 days.
So not from a few weeks ago,
Right. So the judge has to enter a final judgment, which should occur in the next week or so, and then at that date, it'll be 60 days from there.
So it's possible that they'll appeal.
It's possible, but we just
Hopefully
don't
not likely based on the smackdown that they received twice.
Thank you.
Industry jargon. Right.
Legalese.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's that time of year, as Scott said, to do our second quarter financial information update to you. I can get this to work. As we always do, we'll go through the specific quarter results through the first 6 months of the year, revisit the general fund forecast, briefly go through our organizational profile numbers, and included in this one, we'll have a brief discussion on news rack fees, and then have any questions or comments after that. This mouse working. Well, having technical difficulties. Okay. There we go. Okay, the chart that we're showing now is typically our general fund resources, which is 30.1% for the year, which is just about where we were last year. Actually, about 115,000 higher than where we were last year. Again, our revenues come in odd increments, primarily property tax. We get one big lump sum in December and one in April. So it's about where we would expect it to be this time of year. Come on. Here. Okay. Okay. In looking at our expenditures, obviously straight line, we would be 50% of the year, which in total we're at 49%. A few of the departments are a little bit over 50%. Primarily fire is a little bit high. That's due to a mutual aid overtime, which we'll hopefully get the reimbursement for. But generally speaking, this is where we actually we're ahead of last year. We were 49.8% expended at this point in time last year, so just about where we'd expect to be. Okay. So what does that leave us in terms of our fund balance? The reconciliation that we usually show you, we've started the year at 36.1% of our charter and unassigned reserve. We had additional revenue estimates that we've plugged into the estimate, along with the adjustments that were taken first quarter. These have all been approved at this point. As of the end of the first quarter, we were at about 36.3%.
That the important takeaway there is, as you know, the charter is 30%, council target is 35% for a reserve level, but you see there we were at 36%.
And moving forward to this quarter, the appropriation adjustments that are proposed this quarter, we have some one-time adjustments brought forth primarily for the winter shelter. We have the savings incentive program. That was our new budget policy, appropriating for that. We have the cost for the upcoming election of the $540,000. Some of the recurring items that are being sought are the salary survey compensation alignment appropriation and some additional items for the fire department. All told, if those are approved tonight, we're projecting the fund balance to come in about $65 million, still over the 35% target. So plugging those appropriation is the second look at where our resources are. In total, we would be at $188 million. That's using about $1 million in fund balance for the year as a resource. And then moving forward with the proposed appropriation within the general fund, that would get us to the $188 million total appropriation for the year. As we always do, we show you where our cash balances are. Our total cash balance at this point in time through December 31st was $632 million. One promising note is the total electric fund cash is over $200 million. As you recall, that had dipped down to just over $50 million, if I recall, before we had done the rate increase. Obviously, there's makes up, but the operating cash is still a little low according to our policy, but almost there. You recall the water fund was approaching $23 million negative cash. It's been increasing. It's still a little bit negative, but as forecasted, we were hoping to have that positive by the end of the year.
Mr. Garbett?
Yes, the electric fund, $215 million, that's cash in our account?
Correct. Now, keep in mind, the breakdown is here.
Right.
Is operating cash is the $113 million. There's other reserves that we set up, the operating reserve, and then there's also about $38 million in bond cash.
Okay, thank you.
The other fund categories and capital projects and so on and so forth are broken out on the right-hand side for the $268 million and the grand total of $632 million. So plugging all this information into our multi-year forecast, as we constantly update the numbers, we plug them into the forecast to see our long-term picture of the general fund and where we would end up. The good news, as Scott alluded to earlier, was the loan repayment, and we've factored that in, so we still have broken it out to show it if we didn't get it. But as we've plugged in all the adjustments, both the first quarter and the second quarter adjustments, along with our revenue increases, we are projecting a slight surplus for this year. And moving forward, as we've seen in 16-17, we've had a slight deficit, but it moves into a positive surplus in the out years with the information that we now have. This does include all our new PERS information that we have forecasted in for the 3 years of rates and then forecasted out.
And I think the takeaway there is we continue to talk about that plateauing in fiscal year 1920, 2021, and 2022, and you look at the resulting surpluses that we're projecting that are growing from 2.3 to 5 million to 8 million in those out years. So indeed, the council's weathered that storm.
So if we receive the DIF funds,
the DOF
funds, we're still 1.9 in 16-17, and the rest of it will be positive.
Correct.
If not, every year we have some rainy days ahead of us.
Right. That's correct, sir. You see on that very bottom line is if the state, for example, did appeal and we lost on appeal, which seems extraordinarily unlikely at this point, those would be the resulting balances in each of those projected years.
How do we counter that?
Well, we probably would make cuts to bring those positive, or the council would agree to deficit spend through those periods of time. So that's really as much a forward projection that tells you, all things being equal, no change in activity, those deficits are what you would see. But I think what you are seeing now with the victory that we have will be much more along that middle line. We started this year projecting a surplus, knowing that we would have an offset deficit in the coming year and then turn positive. So if at this point things took a turn for the worse, we would come back and recommend cuts to you.
Or if you can, in between, bring some businesses to Glendale, that would generate more.
That always helps. Economic development helps.
And the TOT tax and everything else to offset the deficit that we have.
That's correct, sir.
Thank you.
Revenue always helps. Looking at our organizational profile, as we always do go through that, we show, again, all the updated numbers. Our population is 199,000. This is the figure we get from the Department of Finance. We're up slightly, a few percent from where we were last year. We plug in all our FTE information along with our budget and then come out with what our total budget per capita is, about $4,000, and a total budget per capita, and then general fund budget per capita, which is about $900 per person in Glendale.
So as the residents served per capita, either in general fund or full expenditures grows, I think that indicates for you a greater value that we're able to provide greater service to more people for effectively the same cost. You'll see also that the budgeted full-time equivalent positions, we're holding steady at that 1566. I do think that even as we get to those positive years in 2021 and 2020 or 21-22, that this number probably never grows back beyond 1,600 full-time equivalent employees. You'll recall that at one point we were, about in 2006, we were nearly 2,000 full-time equivalent employees. I don't see that occurring again because we've learned how to do more, frankly, with less. And streamline the operation, and thanks to the council's priorities, focus on what those priorities are. So I think you're getting great value at this point, much more so than you have in the past.
So we lost 22 employees this year? Is that what it is?
Positions, that position count from last
eliminated.
year, those were eliminated out. So what we'll see in the year going forward with the class and comp positions, that number will probably get to 1,572. So yes, you've dropped those full-time equivalent positions.
Okay.
Just a breakout of the budgetary categories that we spend our total budget on, and it stays pretty consistent from year to year. Public safety is 16 to 17% of the budget. The public works, utilities, and transits, almost 55%. Community development, 8%. Quality of life, 5.5%, which is up from the 5%, and then the internal service department's 13%. Salary and benefits. This is the numbers we show with the relativity of where we are in terms of operating costs and personnel versus operating costs. We're at 33%. Our goal is to have that at 35%.
Not more than 35%.
Not more than 35. Correct.
So we use this as basically a soft salary cap for the entire budget. Not more than 35% shall go towards those compensation expenditures.
Another slice of how to look at that is our personnel and M&O, where we are in the general fund. Our goal is to be at 75%. We actually increased a little bit up to 78, so we have a little margin to work there in terms of where we're at. But the numbers are pretty consistent from year in and year out. The management salary ratio, our goal there is to have that no more than 25%. It's been pretty consistent. We're at 19.4% at this point. And that's the basic financial information. We had want to have a discussion on the news fee pursuant to council's request. Just by way of refresher and background, when we had the fee discussion back in the budget, just the premise on how a fee is versus a tax and what typically those are. User fees, typically 100% private benefit, and then it kind of scales down as you go to a full tax-supported operation like police activities, youth programs. You may choose to underwrite those fees with tax revenues because there's benefit to producing healthy youth, historic preservation, so on and so forth. The great example is strapping your water heater. The fee is usually pretty low to encourage safety within the home. So that's kind of the basis of the fees. We do a fee study every several years to determine the costs. Per Prop 218, you can't charge fees more than their approximate costs to the government organization. When we went through the fee study and calculated all the time involved in that particular activity, the full loaded fee would have been $241. Council at the time decided to cut that in half, and the current fee is now $121. That's a 50% cost recovery, and you can see the amounts for either 75%, 25%, and so on. Just by a little way of comparison, and it's kind of a mixed bag in terms of what the other cities charge in terms of news rack fees. There's different annual fees. Again, ours is $121. Beverly Hills has a variety of different fees in how this is charged. Some have subject to business tax. They have other fees involved. We did an average of the annual renewal fee is about $70 for just the renewal fee, but again, there's other fees involved that a individual might have to pay for that purpose of doing that activity in the given jurisdiction.
So a quick question going back to slide 21. For news rack fee, our cost is $241, and we're recouping $121.
Correct.
So 50% we pay. And what is our? I mean, versus Pasadena or Burbank, what's our cost versus their cost? And why is ours $240 and
it would
like
depend.
$50?
It would depend on the level of inspection activity. Neighborhood services staff is here, and they could probably speak to this better than I can, but we have some statistics in terms of the number of inspections that has been done historically. It really depends on each city and how often they have inspectors go out. That incurs the cost. That's built into the fee.
But their cost is going to be a fraction of what our cost is, probably hovering in the information that was provided back to us. Not factoring in business license fees, but just the news rack fees. $20, $25 in that range.
Why?
Because those cities have not done a cost study
So their cost isn't
It's very outdated
arbitrary
cost.
number.
Correct.
Yeah.
They're very outdated
Oftentimes, when you don't have a cost study, you'll look at what other cities charge and then charge something equivalent to it.
Do we know why they haven't done a cost study?
I really couldn't tell you. I know Burbank, for example, this year is doing a cost study, so I would bet you dollars to donuts their number will mirror the number that you have. But at the end of the day, the council still has the authority to charge that which you want to charge. Now, understand the order of magnitude. We net about $10,000 a year on this. And so from the standpoint of what the council's interest is, if your goal is to promote this activity the way that you would promote strapping a water heater or encouraging other types of behavior, encouraging and helping to support print media, then you may say, let's charge $25, and you'll lose $8,000 on a $188 million general fund. Just to give you that kind of magnitude. It's really your call and discretion.
Sure. Now, is this the time to discuss this? I don't want to interrupt. Mr.
We are
Elliott.
close to being done on the presentation.
Yeah, this is it.
Okay.
I mean, in
Unless
just
there are
terms of
cards first.
statistics
Mr. Mayor.
on the activity.
Unless there are cards first on that.
I do have cards.
Okay.
Let's take the speakers first and resume with the discussion.
Because
First, let's start with you after the cards.
right, because
And
I
then-
assume the cards are not going to be about news racks, but
Well,
You never know.
be surprised.
They probably are.
Okay, first speaker is Don Margolin.
oh, that will be
Yeah,
about
yeah.
the news racks. Stand corrected.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor.
3 minutes, please.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, staff, neighbors, I'm Don Margolin. I live in Verdugo Woodlands for almost 13 years. I consider myself the rack master. And I've said before, rack master means if there's a violation that the Community Development Department sends to the papers I'm involved with, I take care of them. I either fix the news rack or I replace it, but I don't leave it in Glendale. So that's my job. That's my main job, not just coming here, which I do on a regular basis. I do have another job. I called the news press and I asked why they removed their news racks, and they said one of the things is save on cost. Another is that they're just not going through enough papers in the news racks, and they give out bulk to certain locations where they go through more papers. And they've also say they remove some LA Times news racks too. So the cost is one factor, but not 100%. The Glendale news rack registration last year was left at $52. This year it is supposed to have been going to $121. However, it's $191 now, because since I've been going to council and we didn't pay, we have been penalized, so $70 more. So no more $121, it's $191. That's what we need to pay if we paid after the council decides what to be done. I have a list of 16 different cities. No city charges over $100. And going to the page 11, which you talked about, the city of Beverly Hills charged $101.74 for a business tax only. They, for some reason, do not charge anything other than business tax. I don't know why, but that's what they do. Burbank is $20. Unless you put a new news rack out, then it's $51. Santa Monica is $87.76. Culver City's $50. And Pasadena is $11.43. So that's all correct. Glendale fees for news racks going back to 2008 was $10. 2009, $10. 2010, it went to $15. Okay. 2011 stayed at $15. 2012, it was supposed to go to $68. However, it was worked out to $34. Somebody worked it out for us. 2013, it went to $51. 2014, it went to $51. 2015, it was supposed to be $241, and somebody came to council a number of times and was reduced to $52, and that's what we paid. I'd like it to be left at $52 because I don't know what is being done to cost $241.
Thank you.
Can I ask
Thank
a
you.
question? I have a
Yes,
question.
you may ask a question.
The registration fees and business tax fees that you were showing, that's not per box, right? That's for each business that does this, or is it per box?
In
Beverly Hills, for instance.
Well, news racks in Beverly Hills, for some reason, they only charge a business tax only.
Right, but it's not per
Total,
news rack.
$101.74 is all we had to pay.
I was looking at the $484 one time. When it says one time, they're talking about for you as a business or per news rack?
It must have been years ago, because they haven't charged anything
Okay, but
since
so
08.
you don't know whether that meant per news rack or per business?
It would be per the business, not per news rack.
business.
I think it's one time.
So, may I?
Yes, if you'd like to question him, because we
It's
have
not
other
him, but it's about his comments to the city manager.
I have a question.
So-
okay. Okay, go ahead.
I try to be flexible.
I
so
think
if
we're at this
you'd like-
point we're all confused about this versus what Mr. Margolin is saying. What are these one-time fees?
We'll thank Mr. Margolin, but we'll have Armin Harkalian, our revenue manager, give you the overview of the research that was done. Because as Armin's will address this, I will tell you that even if you stipulate to everything that was discussed by Mr. Margolin, with all due respect, it doesn't really matter because whatever anyone charges, what we charge is based on a cost. The ceiling of that cost is $242. You can adjust it to anything south of that cost. So with that, Armin.
I understand that, and that's fair enough. But at the same time, there's a reason this comparison chart is there, because we're trying to gauge as to whether our cost, which is, I guess, scientifically arrived at, is reasonable or not. So for that reason, I'd like an explanation of what our cost is, how we calculated it, and versus what those mean. What are these one-time costs?
Absolutely. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. As we mentioned earlier today, we did a fee study, and during that fee study, we identified our cost, which was $241, based on staff time and based on the fully burdened hourly rates. What you see here with the various cities that charge these fees, again, some do charge a business license tax, so they don't really pay attention on their permit fees because they do recover their fees through the taxes. For Beverly Hills, the annual inspection is per rack. However, when staff spoke with the representatives from Beverly Hills, even though they have the authority to do this, however, because of the staffing issues, I guess, they have not really implemented 100%. The previous speaker, actually, he's correct. Beverly Hills does tax on the business revenues that they collect. So it's my error on there. I put a no, but it actually should be yes on the business license tax component. I know they do the annual inspections, but again, it's up to the city whether they collect it or not.
So when you go in as a business and you want to set up 20 racks or 10 racks or 100 racks, you pay $484 for your business.
For the initial, yes.
That's per year or just once?
Well, most of them charge a one-time fee just to establish it, but once you have them in the system, it's, again, whether they choose to do the annual inspections or not. But on the business license component, they do send out renewals on a yearly basis.
So let me recap what you just said. One time, only once, not every year. Once they establish the business, which is news rack business in this case, they pay the one-time fee. One time.
Yes.
Not subsequent years, every year.
Yeah, if it's one time,
and then
exactly.
after that, they not only pay the annual inspection, but also they get taxed on their revenues. Is that
yes.
Fair enough? Okay. Whereas our cost estimate is there's no taxing component to it, first of all.
It's just cost.
Correct. Right. Secondly, the cost is levied every year per news rack.
Correct. And we chose to subsidize it at 50%. So instead of $241, we're charging $121. But again, City Council has the option to reduce it further.
So 121, is that the amount that we authorized last year?
Yes.
It is.
As part of the 15-16 budget.
Based on
process.
Mr. Margolin's comments last year.
And what's the 59 that we're talking about? Or am I?
It's the previous slide, I think. So it's $52. In 14-15, after our fee study, we recommended 100% cost recovery. So 14-15 fiscal year, we were at $241. However, I believe mid-year, City Council suspended at $52. And then effective July 1, we reduced it to $121.
The idea was to creep up to what that fully burdened cost was.
Okay, I understand. So it was 52 before the cost study, and you guys, if I remember correctly, recommended the 241, and then we scaled it back to 121.
Right. Effectively.
Okay. So why are our vendors receiving bills, or why have they already months ago received bills for 191?
The $191 actually includes the other fees. I believe there's a technology charge. There's other charges on top of the $121. So I believe that increases the fee for the cost recovery.
What are these charges? Are these other cities levying these charges?
Yeah, no, I think the $70 is the late fee for not paying the 121 originally. So 121 plus 70, 191. I believe that's the math that he used.
That's kind of what he said, yeah.
That's what it is, right?
Good evening, council members. Yes, the city manager is correct. That additional between the 121 and the 171 is the late penalty, which 2 distributors at this point were contacted and let know, because as we had, the little history that I'll give you, the brief one, is that back in November, we had sent out all our renewal notices to everyone and let them know of the 121. Got some responses from about 8 publications had renewed at that rate prior to the end of the year. As of the end of last month, I had given courtesy calls to all the ones that had not renewed, the speaker being one of the publications, and the next speakers, I believe, who will speak, being the other 2 publications, were the only 2 that contacted me after that courtesy date. And they had contacted subsequently after the fees, as the municipal codes state, that they will go up because we have to go through the process of re-entering their information, and the inspections have to start a little differently. So those individuals, as they have been in the past couple years, been tardy in renewing their registrations, were again late, but have been notified since early November of this and chose to come to you sometime in January.
Okay, thank you.
While the next speaker is speaking, could you possibly give us a list of the publications that are using the news racks, so we have some idea?
To give you the exact list, I had to go back to my desk, but I'd say that it's right now we have the LA Times, La Opinion, I believe, is one of them, I believe the Korea Times, the Korea Herald, a couple private publications. The Glendale News Press has pulled their racks, as he mentioned.
Are there private publications, things like the Real Estate Guide, that kind of thing?
No. One of them, I believe, is Legal Information, is an individual on Brand Boulevard that provides free legal information on a couple of the news racks there. I'm missing a couple larger ones. But the Tolucan Times, excuse me, and Pasadena Weekly has not renewed, I don't believe. I believe they're one of the ones that would fall into the late category.
Okay.
And is there any distinction made between free publications and those which require payment to receive?
Unfortunately not, or fortunately or unfortunately not. No, we do not discriminate between whether they charge or not. It's their own business practice, and obviously they have to generate revenue from somewhere, whether they're not charging and giving away just adverts, or whether they're providing reading material such as the News Press or the LA Times.
Okay, this is a very good discussion, but just remind me, Mr. Ochoa, what kind of dollars are we talking about?
I believe
we've been through a multi-$100 million budget.
Exactly.
And I know we're trying to do the right thing, but I want to make sure we stay focused on the big issue.
So far to date, I believe we have about $9,800 collected for 14-15. The net amount was $75.69. Was that the net, but the gross that we had billed out was 13? Is that correct?
For 2014-15, you're spot on,
so
sir.
You're talking about $10,000 roughly on a $188 million budget.
But $10,000 is not including the $10,000 that we subsidize.
Correct. You could double that and say that's full cost recovery.
By collecting $10,000, we are losing $10,000 on it already.
You could if you were going to charge $70. I think on the next slide it shows what the average renewal rate was $70. You collect $5,000 and be subsidizing to a level of 75%. It truly is your call.
I'd like council to, in light of the minuscule amount of impact this is going to have on our budget, I would like council members to dig deep And if there's a motion that they'd like to make, please have one ready to formulate. I don't want to cut out the speakers, but we're spending a lot of time on this, and Mr. Margolin has been here. If we add up his time, it's well over an hour over the, at 5 minutes a pop over the last year or so. So,
if I can just quickly respond to that, I thought we'd settled this last year. I didn't think that this issue was going to come back again less than 6 months later. But here we are dealing with it. So I'd like to avoid this also.
I understand. After Mr. Margolin, let's go to John Gwynn. John, did I pronounce that correctly? Guillen?
Gwynn. Very good. Did better.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, City staff. I'm John Gwynn. I'm the publisher of Pasadena Weekly. When we're talking about news racks, and we've spent a lot of time talking about costs, and I do realize that these are small dollars but large principles. As Don Margolin has already pointed out, the costs are also borne by these publishers too, including purchase of the physical box that was mandated back in 2013, but we service them, we clean them, we insure them. When we get our permits, we even put the stickers on them. So the discussion of costs notwithstanding, I'd like to pivot a little bit and talk about, and hopefully Council will consider, the cost that we haven't talked about yet, which is the loss of information that these publications provide to the community. It's beneficial to the citizens of Glendale. Am I allowed to pass these out?
Please.
I'd like to.
Is that the LA Weekly or the Pasadena Weekly?
Pasadena Weekly.
I had a bad experience with the LA Weekly many years ago.
Okay, good.
It's on
That's
YouTube.
not us.
You can check it out.
If this is this week's issue, it's very typical. Glendale being the second biggest market that we distribute in besides Pasadena. And this issue was produced before we really knew we'd be here this week, so there was no cheating. But I wanted to point out to everybody that the cover story this week is about the new Museum of Neon Art that just opened up in the city of Glendale. And that wasn't an advertising relationship, that is news. That's on page 9 if you want to read more about it. On page 13 of this week's Pasadena Weekly, and every week, is every home that was sold in the city of Pasadena. What it's sold for, who sold it, who bought it, and we do that every single week.
In Pasadena or in Glendale?
In the city of Glendale.
Oh, you said Pasadena.
I'm sorry, thank you. We have all of our markets listed, and Glendale is definitely the biggest in terms of actual home sales. We have our nightlife and calendar section, which every single week has plenty of goings-on in Glendale. Again, we don't charge for this. On page 28, you'll see our very popular movie review section, and every movie that's playing in the city of Glendale is listed. And I could go on and on. Next week, we have a feature on something appearing at the Alex Theater. I'm sure if they were here today, they would raise their hand in support of our cause because they've been a beneficiary of a lot of great press. And even on the back, inside back cover, page 34, is an event happening at Jack's Bar and Grill. So, when we talk about costs, I just want everybody to reflect on that if these permit increases are allowed to stand, these smaller publications will begin to disappear from the streets of Glendale. This packet that I received when I walked in points out very clearly that since 2012, there's 38% less boxes than there were before. As the fees increase, we drop off. And so
Thank
that's
you,
the
Mr.
true
Gwynn.
cost.
Your time is up. However, I'm informed there may be some questions.
Mr. Gwynn, how many news racks do you have in the city?
We only have 6 news racks.
Only 6?
Only 6 public news racks that are licensed, down from 13.
Okay. So last year when this was reduced to $121 or increased to $121, were you here last year when the council approved
Yes, we
this
were
budget?
represented, and Don came also, and council reduced the fee to $52 at that time.
And your request is to reduce it to $52?
My request would be to be $11.42 like in Pasadena, but $52 we're fine at that point, and we would like that consideration.
And how many racks do you have again? 6?
We have 6.
So 6 times $50 is you're talking about $300 a year?
Yes.
Is that why we're here? for the $300
I'm here for the
a year?
principle of free speech. I'm here because this is important. And, you know, look at what's happened to the news racks over time. Only 140 down from
Don't
368.
be outraged. Let me give you some advice. Don't be outraged at this point, please.
No, there's no
Trust me.
There's no
Trust me.
outrage. I understand. We will, regardless of the decision, we'll find ways to distribute our product. But I think it's something important to a community to be able to pick up free papers and not be overly.
We appreciate that. I just wanted to understand what the basics of our conversation is. So we have 6 news racks, $50 per rack for your business, basically, at $300 a year. That's
correct.
That's what, okay.
Correct.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So,
Mr. Sinani.
Okay, there's some confusion about, and I asked, I thought you answered, but now Mr. Gwynn is saying something completely different. Did we approve $52 fee, or did we approve $121?
You approved $121, the 52 doubled. They haven't paid it. They want to hold on to
I
the
realize
52.
that, but he's under the impression that our current fee is $52.
Our current fee is $121, half of the fully burdened cost.
Okay. You did not realize that?
We paid $52 per news rack in the fiscal year 2015.
14, 15.
14.
Last year.
15.
Last year.
So that 52 is basically 2 years old. It was a higher amount. Council took it to $52 with the idea that it would then double to the 121 and then double again to the fully burdened cost, or not.
I don't remember ever thinking that it would double again, but so we agreed, we voted on the 121.
Yes,
At budget time.
Okay.
That's what's in
so,
place.
And that was a few months ago.
That was in
Sorry?
June.
June.
At budget.
Yeah, it was in June.
No, it's like
With all due respect, I think you
7
rolled it
months
back
ago.
to 52 because that's what we paid per rack. We're licensed up until this due date, which
But
we
you received a late fee,
renewal.
didn't you?
Yeah.
But it's his
Maybe we shouldn't be
renewal.
looking to give
the
folks an
renewal
amount.
may occur after that fiscal year, right? That's why I think maybe that's the confusion.
Hortensia.
Okay.
Premise.
Okay. So thank you, Mr.
Because
Gwynn.
the renewal, wait a
But it's
minute.
apparently in November, right?
Oh, November
Right. So
renewal.
the fee got changed in June, July. The renewal comes in November, so he would have paid 52 prior to that. Now he got the 121.
Do we have a new, I see a registration fee. Do we have a renewal fee that's different?
That's it. It's the same thing.
It's the same. We don't have, so it's the same fee.
Because we'll go out and do an inspection, and
Well, we
that
see-
cost is based on that.
Pardon me, Mr. Ochoa. It's
Mr.
100.
Mayor,
It's,
Mr.
the
Mayor.
letter said $242.
There's no question pending.
I was
Okay, I
going
know
to say,
we- do we have-
he should be recognized by you before he speaks. That's what I was
Do we
saying.
have
So,
other?
just hold on,
Do we have
Mr.
other? We have other speakers on.
We do have other speakers, but
Okay.
let's see if we
I'm
can
just gonna
cut to the chase
say,
here.
I mean, I know we have other speakers and they should speak, but I am prepared to make a motion to lower the fee.
To?
So I just want to. I don't know. We can. I'm fine with whatever. I do agree that there is a public benefit to having the newspapers out there, and given the type of newspapers they are, which is why I asked, they're primarily newspapers. They're not a lot of just pure advertising publications that are just selling things. I subscribe to the LA Times. I read it every morning, so I don't use news racks, although I do for your paper. And by the way, this was a great strategy, putting this on the cover before you came here this week, because
I got in my time machine and I flew back, and I knew.
so I am going to make that motion, and we'll talk about it. But before people come up to speak, I just wanted to let them know that I'm willing to.
I'm going to make a motion of going back to $52. I think that's a motion because there's an amount attached to it.
Fine.
And I'll explain why I'm making that motion for the same reasons that I thought I stated like numerous times last time around, because this is not going to make or break Glendale. The amount of money, we're not dependent on it. Our functionality is going to be unaffected virtually if we go back to $52 or we charge an amount that's significantly lesser than the amount that's required by the cost of running these. But the concept that's associated with it, which is freedom of press and freedom of information, is huge. You can't attach a number to it. So, given the fact that it's not a make it or break it, concept, the amount of money that we totally generate from these, I think, for no other reason than to promote free press, to promote the idea that Glendale does not tax print media out of existence, I'm going to make a motion to set the fee back to $52.
I'll second it, but we do have other speakers, so they need to speak before.
I thought the mayor wanted a
Make
motion.
a comment before we take a vote, after the speakers.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gwynn.
Yeah.
You've heard that there's a motion and a second. I haven't heard any opposition to that. I will ask.
Just procedurally. So the fee resolution would need to come back. You can make the motion. It'll come back. It'll be on consent. Okay. That'll occur. The other thing, people have paid the fee at the current rate. So if you're going to lower it, I assume you want to do retroactive, which would mean then we would need to refund the people who paid the fee at the current rate. Unless you want to do it going forward.
No, I think they definitely should.
Okay.
Be refunded or credited towards the next.
Okay.
As you heard from Mr. Escondar, everybody's paid the fee except for two vendors.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's included in Mr. Sinanian's motion and the second.
Okay.
Also, I'd like to include some kind of a time concept to it, because I don't want to have this come back in 6 months and discuss it for the next year's budget as to whether we're going to increase it or not.
Mr. Moho, just a moment. Thank you. We haven't taken the vote yet. I haven't closed out the speakers. I'm entertaining a motion and a second. We're clarifying that. Before any vote's taken, we'll have the speakers the opportunity. Now, I have two more cards. Mr. Mohill, is it your intention to address the fee, the rack fee? Can I talk you out of it?
Nope.
Okay. Nope. Then you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. Yes, I'm a big proponent of free speech. We should have more racks in this city. What I like about the Pasadena Weekly is that I am one of the writers in that paper. They publish my letters that don't get published in other locations. I am partial to that newspaper.
Want to make that motion?
But it's also then important to know is that unlike the Glendale News Press, they don't receive any advertising dollars from the city of Glendale. I believe the fee is, I think we give them about what? About $10,000 in advertising dollars every year, the GNP? What other publication gets advertising dollars? You make small publishers, small papers struggle, yet you can go ahead and the news press gets thousands of dollars every year. I'm looking for fairness. Is that not fair? Why don't you divvy out your advertising dollars to the Pasadena Weekly, the CV Weekly, another publication? You just zero in on the news press, which is a good paper. But let's talk about fairness within the community. Pasadena Weekly, CV Weekly, they struggle. Every dime counts, but yet you can go ahead and write a check every year to the news press for about $10,000 for advertising. Is that fair? Thank you.
The last card I have is Ara Aristaresian. May I encourage you to waive your time? We're on the verge of voting on a motion to reduce it to $52.
Couple seconds only, probably. My name is Ara Aristaresian, called my publication. I remember when I stopped in neighborhood services a couple of years ago and asked them how it works to put the rocks in Glendale. It was a very simple approach. It says, look at the city. If you see like less than 8 news rocks, you can put yours. I cruise all around. I find only 10 locations. But today you can see in the street, major street, Glendale, Glendale, Central, Pacific, you can see only 1 or 2. That means you guys raising rates and the news rocks disappear from the city. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Mohill, keep it down, please.
Just for the record, we don't advertise with the news press after that bid went out. I'll defer to City Clerk, but I believe that went to the Glendale Independent, not to the news, to our good friends in the Fourth Estate of Glendale News Press. So a little bit of an Emily Latella moment for him.
Okay. Mr. Garvetchian.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I agree with my colleagues that this is not a make or break dollar amount, but I think we need to be considering some of the programs that went away for $5,000, $8,000 a month, like STAR programs. Some of their programs went away for $5,000 a month, $10,000 a year, $5,000 a year. Programs went away, and also bear in mind that we increased our utility rates, our water rates, our permit fees, our design review fees are $6,500 nowadays, if I'm not mistaken. And if you get returned for redesign, you have to pay that fee again, which is $12,000, $13,000 for an average Joe who wants to add something to his house or build a new house. So I think we need to not compare our city to every other city as far as the fees goes, because on the same token, review fees, design review fees in many of the cities are $3,000, $2,500, and ours is $6,500. Are we going to reduce those or not? I think we need to be very careful. But I agree with my colleagues about the press and weekly papers that are very beneficial and people are using it. And I wouldn't go that far about free speech, because we're not working against free speech. I mean, most of these papers, print papers, are in difficult situation because of the internet, and see how many bookstores were closed because of the internet, and you can purchase books over the internet nowadays. But I agree with my colleagues. I mean, $52 or $120, but I don't want to come back next year and talk about turning it back into $11 a year. So this is it, and
right.
let's
but also
put a cap on
not
it.
Talk about going back to 240. So that's what I'm saying. Let's attach a period provision.
Right, but we need to be, again, I urge my colleagues to look into the programs that we lost because of $10,000 a year or $5,000 a year, and see if we can maybe help some of them down the road. I don't disagree to put a cap on this for 2 years or so, but I don't want to have a 10-year cap. So everything is, rents are raising. Look what's going on here, and you can't expect to have a perfect location on Brand Boulevard for a set fee for 10 years. So I agree with my colleagues. I'm going to go with the motion, but I think we need to consider our programs as well.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, in response to the period of time in which this possible fee amendment would endure, is that as long as it is until we change it again, or is it?
Essentially, yes. I mean, if you're going to lower it, then you'd have to come back and put it on the agenda again to increase it.
Okay. Now, that motion, then, is that embedded in one of the items under 8A?
I would suggest it be embedded in motion 8A1, the motion to note and file the report.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
yes,
I just want to make sure that we're not reducing any of the services. That we, the checking and making sure that the boxes are in good condition, everything will continue. Because I was kind of going in a different direction, and I won't go there right now. I was going to say that we should make this all complaint-driven and put a fine on the rack owners or renters. But I'm all for this lowering of the fees, so I'll be approving that. Go ahead.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Sinanian, I'm going to interpret your motion regarding the fees to be embedded in the motion to note and file at 8A1. Am I correct in doing so?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
And Ms. Friedman, I believe your second is to that. Maybe do 8A2 and 3 also at the same time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Will someone like to move 8A2 and 8A3?
We'll move the item.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Margolin? You can address the council in future meetings, but this item has been...
So next cover on Passing the Weekly, Glendale City Council stands up for free speech.
I think that's correct. Mr. City Clerk, 8B.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on to 8B, as a matter of importance, something that was overlooked during our announcements is the Glendale Mayor's prayer breakfast, which we forgot to announce. It's going to be held this Thursday, March 10th, 2016, in the Glendale Civic Auditorium. Doors will open at 6 a.m. It's a wonderful breakfast. This is the 53rd annual Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. And this year, the keynote speaker will be someone who's very familiar to hockey fans, particularly of the Los Angeles Kings. It's award-winning Kings television analyst, former player for the Kings, Jim Fox. For those who are fans of the Stanley Cup champion Kings, they'll recognize the name of Mr. Fox. Of course, comments by you, Mayor Najarian. Master of Ceremonies will be School Board member Greg Krikorian. And it is always a wonderful event, very well attended. Those who wish to attend, $30, free parking, great breakfast, and tickets can be purchased through GlendaleArts.org or the Montrose Verdugo City Chamber of Commerce. Again, Los Angeles Kings legend Jim Fox will be the speaker at the 53rd Annual Mayor's Prayer Breakfast. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kasakian. So let's move to 8B.
8B is Director of Human Resources regarding resolution of the City of Glendale providing for the establishment of classification titles and compensations for employees of the City of Glendale. B1 is a resolution for GCEA and GCA confidential classifications. 2 is a resolution for GMA and GMA exempt classifications.
Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. Based on what you approved by way of the budget, this is a companion piece that speaks to the compensation alignment program. As you will recall, the idea was to gradually, over time, prioritize a set number of positions from GCA, GMA, basically the non-safety classifications, survey them to the market, find out what the mean average is for those ranges, and then elevate the ceilings, not necessarily the salaries, but the ceilings for those ranges to that market average, not as a control point, but actually as the ceiling for the average. And then pursuant to the employee's performance over the course of any given year, they would be eligible for merit step adjustments. So what you see in the item before you is the list of positions split between non-management and management positions between GCEA, GMA, and the second part of the report has to do with the reclassification of a number of existing classes and or the adjustment of existing ranges to foster the reorganizations in Glendale Water and Power, Public Works, Information Services, and Fire. Mr. Doyle has all of the specific information for the comp alignment program if you have those questions.
Mr. Ochoa, in short, when we spoke earlier this week and you're giving me the briefing, you told me that we are making sure that the most important and the most valued positions of the city are being paid at this initial adjustment are being paid competitive rates as it relates to our survey cities.
Yes, sir. Truly, it's not an easy task, but something that we undertook in collaboration with GCA, GMA as a matter of meet and confer. Those positions that are most difficult to replace, most difficult to recruit, and that have the greatest priority by way of the work that is done by the city. All of our employees do a wonderful job. All of the positions have a tremendous value. Some are marginally more depending on the nature of the work. So you'll see here custodial officer. We have a hard time recruiting jailers. That was one position that we had to focus on. And you'll go through that list and you see those are the positions that were considered as part of this initial round.
Okay. Thank you. I do have a card from the public, and then afterwards I'll entertain discussion of questions by my colleagues. Mike Mohill.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. You know, the annual reclassification again. Let's see, if a technician becomes a supervisor, he gets a name change, and will he get a pay raise too, Mr. Ochoa? And will that pay raise affect our unfunded pension debt of over $440 million and still growing? I don't mind giving people a pat on the back nowadays, but we cannot afford money to give to our city employees. And they're not they're good people, but you know what? There are millions of people who will take those jobs that you say are hard to find, sir, that are unemployed. Millions are unemployed in this country. And you have the nerve to have the taxpayers of Glendale to pay more for city workers. They're good people, and there's nothing wrong with them. But we can't afford them. They should be on Social Security and a 401k plan like the folks who have to pay the bills. Now, I will continue coming here week after week, month after month, saying we need to change the system. CalPERS is a bankrupt and irresponsible pension system. Mr. Ochoa benefits by CalPERS. He'll be receiving 75% of your last year's salary as your pension for life.
Only.
You wish? It's going to be higher?
Someday.
But I think you're making over $330,000 right now, aren't you, sir?
Well, let's not go back
Anyway,
and forth.
the point is this, ladies and gentlemen, the viewing audience, we cannot afford union workers in this city. We need to put everybody on Social Security and a 401k plan. Let them suffer with the 401k plan. How many people lost money in the last 401k plan when their when their stocks went down this last few weeks here, or their bond money went down? But if you're a CalPERS employee, you don't worry about that, because you know what? You know that the taxpayers of Glendale are going to guarantee the investment of CalPERS, 7.5%. Now tell me, did everybody make 7.5% return on their investment over the last 30 days? Raise your hand. Anybody? Thank you. So why should we be guaranteeing city employees' pensions? Nobody's guaranteeing my pension. No one's guaranteeing my 401k losses. We need to change the system. And I'm going to repeat myself every day if I have to on every issue, because I'm proud of my position. You don't want to make changes. We have people on council have either received campaign contributions from the unions or endorsements.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. And they sit here every day and defend them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any other cards. Let's go to Ms. Devine and then Ms. Friedman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two questions. One is about the range in respect to the market average of these employees that we're raising the ceiling for. What did you find? Can you explain to the public what you found when you investigated the market averages? And then I'd like to have you explain the criteria that you used to select the positions that were given this benefit.
Yes, ma'am. Just very briefly, again, the criteria was focused on the value of that position to the overall work and mission of the city, the difficulty with retention, the difficulty with recruitment for these very specific positions. What we found, because this council had done actually very close to what Mr. Mohill had talked about in terms of freezing salaries for a long period of time. And when the survey was completed, a number of these positions, as you see in the staff report, are 10, 15, in some cases 20% behind the market. Now, if you're going to stay in the business of being with libraries, or you're going to stay in the business of having a jail, you have to have qualified people working in those. I would submit to you that if you were going to stay in a jail, if a loved one had to, would you want somebody who is qualified, who is well trained, who knows what their position is? Well, yeah, absolutely. It's in your interest as well as mine, regardless of whether or not.
I'm sorry. Could we please keep it quiet, folks? Please. No outbursts. Ms. Movsesian, please. I'm sorry, Mr.
No, it's okay. I appreciate that. Certainly, whether or not it is in the interest of all of us to have good inspectors, well-trained inspectors, not those who are the bottom of the barrel. You want to make sure that you can attract and retain the best talent and not be a way station for those employees. And what you saw increasingly was more of our employees being able to move on to someplace else, and Glendale being a tremendous training ground for other organizations.
And as far as this being fiscally responsible?
I would argue that it is, because it's, one, having the right people do the right job, but also we embarked on this discussion working with GCA, GMA, wanting to do 2 rounds of this work, because we identified, as you looked at that 7-year financial forecast, that we probably could afford about $400,000 a year for the entire organization. What we found, we were so far behind the market, we'll actually only be able to do 1 round of these adjustments. So it's never easy. It certainly is not fun. But if we are going to be in these lines of business, we need to have the best people we can afford, and that's what you're seeing here. The confluence of the council's mandate for fiscal responsibility with the other priority of having the best talent that you can afford. And that means, as the council has articulated before, we expect above average people for average pay. And I think that's what you have, by and large, pound for pound with this organization.
And these positions were chosen by the representatives of these unions, so that no one is kind of being singled out, or we don't want to have any kind of morale problems because of this or issues.
In partnership, I will submit to you that because you are prioritizing, some people will feel that they were left out, and that is unfortunate. But that's why this had to be done as part of the meet and confer in collaboration with GCA GMA. We couldn't afford to get it wrong.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Friedman.
I was just going to say that listening to Mr. Mohill bring up the very true point that a lot of people now lost their 401ks in the recession. People are living off of Social Security. But the conclusion that I came to after listening to that wasn't that we should have less people in unions, but we should have more people in unions because they tend to protect people's pensions and retirement. I know my mother, who was a union nurse, was able to retire with some security because of her pension. So I want to move the item.
Second.
At 8B1 and 2. Are there any other discussions? Is there that was seconded? If there's no other discussions, let's take roll call on
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Garpetian.
Before we move forward, I just want to echo what Mr. Ochoa indicated, that this 15% is not that they're getting a 15% raise tomorrow. This is a ceiling for their salary. So it's not that somebody's getting 15 or 20% raise tomorrow. I just want to put that out there. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Let's go to 8C.
8C, Director of Human Resources regarding authorization of incentives for employees participating in Lean Six Sigma program. 8C1, resolution authorizing incentives for city employees participating in Lean Six Sigma training program.
This is not the city's Weight Watcher program, although it sounds like it. Mr. Ochoa.
I will be brief just because this is a very uplifting, I think, and happy item and very small in terms of what the cost is. Lean and Six Sigma have been combined as Lean Six Sigma as a means of looking at process innovation and means of reducing opportunities for mistakes through either complexity, subjectivity, lack of training, and really just variations in the way that business is done. In collaboration with our partners at GCC through the Professional Development Center, 10 employees volunteered. We had greater than 10, but 10 were selected of those volunteers. We are working to push them through Lean Six Sigma training at the PDC, and they will emerge in I think a month or so as green belts in the discipline of Lean Six Sigma. Some of them may go on and become black belts, and what that will do for us is allow us basically to take any one of these 10 employees, plop them into any department, really, not just their own department, although they probably will start there, and begin work on looking at process innovation programs from everything from the way that we recruit employees to the way that we process news rack fees to the way that we do any number of things, trying to eliminate those variations and those opportunities for mistake. If and when those green belts are actually on assignment, what we're recommending as a competency pay would be $100 a month. If they're not on assignment, then they don't get the pay. But if they are on assignment working on one of our projects, they would get that $100. If the group went on to become black belts, that number could reach $7,500 per year for the entire cadre. So it's probably somewhere between $6,000 and $7,500, depending how many go on to become green belts. But a great deal of credit is due to our partners at GCC. This is something that we're very excited about, and we'd like, hopefully, to get the council's blessing to move forward.
And did you mention, I may have missed it, that this extra $100 per month while on special assignment is not included in their base salary?
Correct. It is
non-PERSable.
That's correct, sir. It is not PERSable. It would be only in place while they're on assignment and not when they're not on assignment. Thus, it would not be part of the base.
Okay. So it's a special forces, if you will, of our city
right.
employee workforce.
You have asked occasionally, how are we able to continue, and not to sound like a shill, but truly, you've asked, how do we provide the same level of service with such fewer employees? A lot of it has been by being a little bit smarter in the way that we work. This is taking it to another level in terms of, to use a cliche, in terms of training our employees, investing in those employees so that they really learn how to rethink a given problem.
Is this a new concept in municipalities?
It's an emerging concept in municipalities. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's new, but it is something that is a little more leading edge. You probably have read about it. You saw it. Jack Welch, when he was at GE, really helped push it forward, something that was thought of as a forward-leaning type of training. It is emerging now with cities more and more. Because I just don't see us getting back to those service levels that we had in the mid-2000s. And so it's a little bit more of trying to be smarter with the way that we work.
Thank you. I don't have any cards.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Thank you. Let's go to 8D.
8D, City Attorney regarding calling for arguments for and against the proposed measure repealing the utility users tax. 8D1, resolution of the City Council calling for arguments for and against proposed measure for the ballot for the special election on Tuesday, June 7, 2016.
Mr. Ochoa.
I would defer to my esteemed colleague, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The item before you is to start the initial process for the selection of authors for the arguments both for and against the proposed ballot measure that would proposes to repeal the UUT for gas, electric, and water. So this step in the process is calling for the arguments. We'll be back before you on the 23rd to select the authors. Persons wishing to write the arguments for and against have until the 19th of this month to submit their requests in writing. And then the selections are made based on the preferences stated in the code. So with that, I'm recommending approval of this resolution.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And I do not have any cards. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Devine? Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Thank you. Let's go to 8E.
80, Director of Public Works regarding Public Works Facilities Management Building Maintenance Contracts. 81, Resolution adopting a request for proposal for maintenance and repair of generators at various city facilities and authorizing the Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 82, Resolution adopting requests for proposals for the maintenance and repair of elevators at various city facilities and authorizing the Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 83, Resolution adopting a request for proposals for maintenance and repair of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning HVAC system at various city of facilities and authorizing the Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 84, Resolution adopting a request for proposals for maintenance and repairs of automated doors, roll-up doors, and gates at various city facilities and authorizing Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 85, Resolution adopting a request for proposals for as-needed plumbing services at various city facilities and authorizing the Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 86, Resolution adopting a request for proposals for as-needed electrical services at various city facilities and authorizing the Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 87, Resolution adopting a request for proposals for as-needed general building repair services at various city facilities and authorizing the Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 88, Resolution adopting a request for proposals for as-needed roofing and waterproofing services at various city facilities and authorizing the Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 89, Resolution adopting a request for proposals for as-needed security system services at various city facilities and authorizing the Director of Public Works to solicit for proposals. 8010, motion amending contract C104077A with Generator Services Company Incorporated, adding 17 days and $75,000. 8011, motion amending contract C104088A with Cone Incorporated, adding 25 days and $15,000.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa.
This sounds like a lot, but that's why we didn't have it on consent, because there's so many different items on here. Basically, what we're doing, last year, as you recall, we consolidated our building maintenance functions into one operation under Mr. Galanian in the Public Works Department. We have by now, we have a limit on purchase agreements to a limit of $50,000. But with all of the contracts for the entire city in one location, $50,000 for building maintenance services, as you see listed out here in those resolutions, really would not cover it. And so we need to do contracts, not POs. I said purchase agreements, I said purchase orders, I'm sorry, not POs. So what we were asking that you do is allow us to go out to RFP on all of these 9 areas, the first 9 resolutions that you have. And on resolution number 10 and resolution number 11 are extensions of existing orders that would allow us to bring generators, generator repair, and elevator repair and maintenance into alignment so that they all will end up at the end of the fiscal year. We'll come back to you following the RFP process, and hopefully we'll have contracts that we can recommend to you for all of these areas up to and including generators and elevator repairs to start new in July 1. So it's a whole lot of stuff, but it's really just bringing into alignment the consolidation of all of our facilities maintenance programs.
Mr. Garbett?
Yes, Mr. Rocha. These RFPs are based on the inspections that we already conducted on the elevators or the HVAC systems or generators, or part of the RFP is going to request for them to inspect it and give us a bid.
I'd have to defer to Mr. Galani on that. Is that true?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Garpetian, these will be on as-needed basis, so we will get hourly rates from the companies. And once we do the inspections, with their help, with their assistance, they will assign projects, individual projects, per building, per facility, to each of the selected contractors.
So the RFP is going to be, basically they're going to tell us what their hourly charges are or monthly charges are, if that's what it is. It's
right.
Not for specific
correct program. Only as needed, just to lock them in. Right.
Exactly. So, Mr. Garpetian, we'll have a list of needed services so they can correspond their rates to those specific services.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
I don't have any cards.
I'll move the item if there's no discussions.
So it's 8E 1 through 11. Can we do it like that?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Councilmember Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Let's go to 8F.
8F, Director of Public Works regarding report regarding as needed support for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning HVAC automated control system at the Glendale Police Department. 8F1, resolution dispensing with competitive bidding and awarding a contract to Carrier Corporation for the as needed support of HVAC automated control system at the Glendale Police Department.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa.
Yes, sir. As you know, I'm sure we have never been fully satisfied with the HVAC system at the police facility, which opened in 2004. The manufacturer, the equipment, we believe, has always been sound, but the installation was where a lot of the problem was. We spent a great deal of time and effort through the Facilities Maintenance Division understanding what's going on and rectifying kind of catch as catch can what the problems are. At this point, we believe we have a very good handle on what the problems are by working with the manufacturer Carrier directly and not with a subcontractor. So what we are asking right now is for a proposed agreement that would cover fiscal year 15-16 through 17-18 to the tune of $40,000 this current fiscal year, $100,000 in 16-17, and then 17-18 $60,000. We believe that we have good pricing. We have a great relationship at this point with the manufacturer, and as I say, a very firm handle on what the problems will be with the automated control system in that building. Alternatively, we would go out to bid, but we believe at this point, because it's a Carrier system, working with the manufacturer is the most expeditious and still cost-effective way to go. If you have any specific questions, certainly Mr. Galanian can answer those.
Any specific questions?
I have one. These deficiencies, it has nothing to do with installation. It's just about equipment and updating equipment.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Devine, some of the deficiencies I can name are missing communication cables or missing controls.
It's a bit of the opposite, actually. The original equipment was good. The installation is where we've had problems. The installer was a problem.
Was it Carrier that installed?
No, that's our problem. That's why we're going back to the manufacturer.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to move the item, Mr. Vaughn?
I will move that item.
8F1.
Second.
Thank you. I have no cards. Roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Chair Najarian.
Yes. 8G, please.
AG is Director of Public Works regarding installation of new traffic signals, battery backup systems, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and railroad quiet zone improvements project. G1 is a resolution rejecting all the bids, dispensing with competitive bidding, and authorizing the Director of Public Works to negotiate and the City Manager to execute a construction contract in an amount not to exceed $1,250,000 directly with the bidders for the installation of new traffic signals, battery backup systems, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and railroad quiet zone improvement project, specification number 3588R.
Mr. Ochoa?
Yes, sir. And I think we have a diagram for this. So what you have before you is an interesting bidding scenario. As you recall, at the end of last year, we went out to bid for this work. $1.25 million was the engineer's estimate for all the items that the city clerk read into the record, most notably the battery backups and the quiet zone equipment that we were looking to install. We had 7 bidders, all hovering around that engineer's estimate. The problem is the lowest 4 bidders were non-responsive ultimately to the bid. And so what we are asking for at this point is to allow Mr. Golanian and his team to dispense with competitive bidding and allow those other 3 bidders who came in anywhere from 1.259, just slightly over the engineer's estimate, up to $1.55 million, to negotiate with them directly to select one of those contractors and bring them down to the engineer's estimate. Doing it this way will allow us to get to the quiet zone that we've wanted for so long quicker, as opposed to throwing out all the bids, rebidding the contract. At this point, we feel very good about understanding what those last 3 bidders are offering to us. The diagram, I'll ask Rubik to walk you through it real quick so you can see where the work is being done or would be done.
Mr. Mayor, Member City Council, basically the scope of work includes new traffic signal systems at Broadway and Kenwood Street, Broadway and Everett Street, as well as Chevy Chase Drive and Harvey Drive. We're also going to install a new battery backup system for these traffic signals, as well as upgrading some of the existing systems. For pedestrian safety purposes, we'll be installing rectangular rapid flashing beacons at Verdugo Road and Glencoe Way, Verdugo Road and Sunview Drive, as well as Colorado Street and Lincoln Avenue. As Mr. Ochoa mentioned, part of this contract will involve installation of security fencing, some handrails, and some striping as part of our effort to provide partial quiet zone at 3 of our railroad crossings as required by the CUPC. With that, I will entertain any questions you may have.
Okay. And are these Measure R funds that are coming to us to pay for this?
Mr. Mayor, partially, yes, we are using Measure R funding.
Okay. So we're making our streets safer and our railroad crossings safer. Ms. Devine.
Yeah, I have a question about the quiet zone safety improvements. Is that in addition to the funds that we're getting from, I think, Metro for the quiet zone?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Devine, this will be above and beyond what the mayor has secured funding for. That funding will pay for back flashers that will be installed by Metrolink after we're done with our improvements.
Okay. And when do we don't have any expectation as to when those funds will be made available?
Councilmember Devine, those funds have been appropriated. They are available. We just need to have Metrolink provide a scope. We enter into an agreement as the city with Metrolink, and then make a request to Metro to transfer the funds from Metro to Metrolink.
Okay, thank you. I'll move the item.
Mr. Garpetian.
Oh,
yes. When you said the 3 low bidders, they're non-responsive. They bid on this project and they're not responding to you, or what does that mean? They're not responding?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Garpetian, essentially, as part of the bid package, we ask a series of questions that we require the bidders to respond to. Some of them involve the previous projects they've been engaged in of the similar magnitude and size, the percentage of the work that was done by the prime contractor, their safety records in the last few years, and their financial standing. So every single one of these bidders missed 1 or 2 of those requirements and didn't respond or didn't completely respond to this question. So that makes their bids or their bid package non-responsive.
All right.
It's a term of art in the bid process. It's a little bit confusing and contradictory, but
because it's very interesting, they take the time to make the bid, and then they don't respond to questions. That's
right.
Complete.
Not fully responsive, I think, is probably.
And rest assured, it would be challenged by the other bidders who did correctly respond. Right.
Okay, so Ms. Devine made a
Move the
motion.
item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. I have no cards. Roll call, please.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian.
Yes. 8H, please.
8H is Director of Public Works regarding construction of bicycle facilities, Measure R, and citywide bikeway and pedestrian improvement projects with specification number 3561. H1 is a motion awarding a construction contract to All American Asphalt for the construction of bicycle facilities, Measure R, and citywide bikeway and pedestrian improvement project in the amount of $872,042.25, authorizing city manager to execute the contract and approving a 15% reserve for contingencies in the amount of $130,806.33. 2 is a resolution of appropriation to appropriate funds for the construction of bicycle facilities, Measure R, and citywide bikeway and pedestrian improvements project.
Thank you. Mr. Ochoa.
Another interesting procurement that we have here, I'll leave it to Mr. Galanian to talk about the bicycle master plan, the work that's being done, and the loan bid that we received.
Mr. Galanian.
Thank you, Mr. Ochoa. Mr. Mayor, members, City Council, as noted, the item before you is a recommendation to award a construction contract to All American Asphalt of Corona in the amount of $872,000 and some change. All American Asphalt, although being a reputable company, and we have done many projects in the past with them, they were the only bidder on this project, primarily because as part of the scope of the work, we had included what we call this new cost-effective technology, if you recall in my presentation about the pavement management system, called Cape Seal, repaving that will be done on Justin Avenue, and there are only maybe 2 or 3 companies who can handle this kind of specialty paving, and American Asphalt being one of them, they bid on the project. Their bid is 2.6% or only $22,000 higher than our best cost engineer's estimate, but we believe it's very reasonable. The scope includes installation of colored bicycle lane on Sonora Avenue, bikeway route signing and sharrows on a number of streets. For pedestrian safety, again, pedestrian-activated rectangular rapid flashing beacons at certain locations, as well as slurry sealing and installation of ADA-compliant curb ramps. We use Measure R and bicycle transportation plan funding that are earmarked and only associated with bicycle and pedestrian-related improvements. And as Mr. Ochoa mentioned, this is in line with the bicycle master plan that the City Council adopted in 2012, and it continues our effort to provide connectivity between the bikeway facilities that we have installed in the city in the past. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ms. Friedman?
I don't have a question. I'm really glad to see that the bike program is continuing to move forward and that we're investing a substantial amount of money into the infrastructure to make it safer to bicycle around the city, and hopefully more and more people will continue to get on a bike and get out of their cars. So it's great to see. And if there's no questions, I'll be happy to move the item.
I have one question.
I did.
Well, let's go first to Mr. Garpetian, then Ms. Devine, then Mr. Sinanian, and then I have a speaker also.
So this project is being funded by, because I wasn't here when this 2012, when this bicycle master plan was approved. So this project is being funded by Measure R money for $300,000 and the gas tax fund, which is $690,000, right? That's from our own funds, gas tax funds that we have for the city?
Yes, Council.
That's from Measure R.
Yes, Councilman Garpetian. The gas tax allocation that the city receives on a per capita basis, on an annual basis, as part of this project, will be used to pay for the slurry sealing and cape sealing, essentially repaving projects. the part of Measure R that's funding the bicycle facilities only be paid by Measure R.
So that $690,000 is mostly for slurry sealing and repaving the streets.
Yes, Councilmember Garpetian.
And that $100,000, the CIP reimbursement fund. Okay. Now the second question, the 15% contingency. So this doesn't mean that the price will increase to $1,090,000, right? Because their bid is $872. I just want to make sure that everybody's clear what the contingency means for that 15% contingency.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Garpetian, the contingency will be saved for unforeseen conditions and unusual circumstances that we may encounter in the field and we haven't accounted for during the design process. It's not an automatic addition to the contract.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ms. Devine.
Yeah, I noticed it has installation of Class 2 colored bicycle lanes. Do we have that in our city? Something new.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Devine, this will be our first demonstration colored bicycle lane that we haven't had in the city previously.
And which
this will be installed on Sonora Avenue.
Say again?
Sonora. Yeah.
From where to where?
From, I believe, San Fernando to the southerly end that will connect to the Riverwalk.
Oh, okay. So it's from San Fernando going south?
Correct.
The garden.
Okay, it's because, yeah.
Yeah.
You know why? Because going north, it's one of the most narrow.
Very good.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Sinanian?
And I'm also happy that this process is moving forward and we are taking steps to make the city safe for pedestrians and bicyclists. But on the note of making the city safe for cyclists, I ran into something that I believe is nowadays common in many cities, many municipalities, which is a service station for bicycles. I was at Glendale College a few days ago, and I took a photo of it, which I'd like to show you. And if we're promoting the cyclist culture in the city of Glendale, shouldn't we be putting these up in a few places? I think City Hall would be a good place to start. It would be symbolic and hopefully practical to encourage our employees to use bicycles and therefore our residents to do so also.
Also the transportation center.
Yes, well, we should put it up in many places, but I'm saying City Hall, transportation center, and so on and so forth. So does this fit into anything that we're going to do? Can we look forward to something like this being part of what we're doing in the near future?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Sinanian, this would be, actually we'll look into it, see how feasible it is for our use. I'm pretty sure it is if they've used it elsewhere and the cost associated with it, but this would be something, if approved, that we will use the contingency amount to pay for. So it's quite
use the contingent. Okay,
right.
I understand.
So although it's not part of the original contract, if it gets approved and it's feasible and practical to do, we'll include it as part of this contract and use the contingency funds to pay for it.
This was in Glendale College?
This is Glendale College, yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Otherwise, I think we're not being safe.
Right. You weren't planning. Were you planning on putting one of those at the library? I know you did some bicycle entities at the library.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Devine, what we were talking about at the time, it was a bike share and rental station, and we're still pursuing that.
Be another good place for that. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So when would this come up?
Councilmember Sinanian, once we have a contractor on board, we'll get a proposal from them, and we'll run it through the city manager's office, and if approved, then we'll make it part of the contract in the next few months.
Thank you.
So we're at 8H, 1 and 2.
I'll make the.
Excuse me.
There's a card.
I do have a
I
card.
already moved it.
Moved it?
I do have a card. Mr. Mohill. We'll get to that. Are you on the
I was going to take it.
She moved it already.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill. Mrs. Friedman has been pushing bicycles since she's been on city council. What I find it very interesting is that she's not pushing to reduce the electric and the water rates for our people in the city. You have about 25 people in the back here who are going to be speaking about rent control during oral communication. Instead of spending money on bicycles, you should be spending money on cars. People ride cars. What's the ratio of people who ride bicycles versus the people who drive their cars? We have Mountain. The road is the street called Mountain. It's becoming cobblestones nowadays. Western Avenue, Kenneth Road, Verdugo Road, and all the side streets are crumbling. But we're going to have bicycles. We're going to say, wave the flag, everybody in the country, that Glendale promotes bicycles. Because we have Laura Freeman, the big proponent of bicycles. Who here will talk for the people who drive the cars, take buses? Why are we spending thousands and millions of dollars on bicycle, on lining the streets and putting up signs? You know, when I was a kid, I rode my bicycle on the streets, and you know what? There were no signs. There was no striping on the street. I knew that if I was riding my bicycle, I stayed to the right of the road. It's called common sense. Do we have ignorant people in the city of Glendale? Is that why we're spending money on signs and marking the road? Or we're going to make the roads, paint them purple, pink, or whatever color you think it would be appropriate. Why don't we spend this money on fixing our Measure R says you have discretionary income on this. You don't have to spend it on the bicycles, do we? But you see, we've already committed ourselves, unfortunately. But you ask all the people who are riding our roads today, wheel alignments because the roads are crumbling. The street of Mountain, Kenneth Road, Verdugo Road. This is terrible. I wish somebody on council tonight puts a stop to it and votes no and do not approve it. Send a message that the drivers who drive cars have a higher priority than the people who ride the bicycles. What's the ratio of bicycle riders versus car drivers? I bet it's about 5,000 to 1. Thank you.
So, Mr. Moho, the only comment I need to make is that portion of Measure R that's being spent on the bicycle facilities can only be spent pursuant to the Measure R dictate and ordinance. Can only be spent on bicycle facilities. There are many components of Measure R.
That's right.
Transit capital, bus maintenance, streets, highways, but this portion can only be used for bicycles.
But you don't have to spend it, sir.
Well, why wouldn't you?
Oh, government money? A freebie? No.
Here's $10. You don't have to spend it.
No, you can take that. You can take that money, Mayor.
Give me $5.
You can take that money, Mayor, and put it someplace else.
Now, please don't destroy the decorum of this meeting, Mr. Moore.
I didn't go there, sir. You're the one that brought up the dollars, not I.
Very polite with each other. So
I've always been respectful.
I'll just pretend I didn't hear that.
I've always been respectful to you.
Thank you.
We may not agree.
Okay, we have one more speaker, Mr.
Thank
Mulhill. Tamara Movsesian.
Ես հարցի համար կասեմ, համ ուրիշ հարցել ունեմ։ Եղավ, ես bicycle-ի համար ճիշտ է ասում, ես մարդը։ Դուք սարքում եք հեծադիվի ճանապարհներ հատուկ, երբ որ Glendale-ը ամենավատագույն քաղաքներից մեկն է ավտոքշողների մեջ։ Ճիշտ է, ստատիստիկա է։ Իսկ թողնում եք, որ մետրոբասը հադի իրական գառը Լեքսինգտոնում, Վիլսոնում, Հարվարդում, իդեսուտ հավարը չեն կանգ առնում, այդտեղի մարդիկ մարդ չեն, որ այդտեղ ապրում են, 180 հավարդ է մի ուրիշ կանգառներում, միայն Glendale-ում, ուրիշ քաղաքներում նման բան չկա։ Հիմի ընկել եք bicycle-ի հետևից, Լարա Ֆրեյդմանը երբ որ ընտրվում էր Castle, ես շատ լավ հիշում եմ, Glendale Central Library-ում, նա ասեց, որ ինքը դեմ է rent control-ին, որտեղ ջահել ժամանակ, ուսանող ժամանակ, ինքը ունեցել է պրոբլեմ Նյու Յորքում, որ չի կարողացել այն շենքում տուն վարձի, որտեղ որ ինքը ուզել է, որտեղ rent control ա եղել, մարդիկ երկար ապրել են։ Ուրեմն Glendale-ում rent control պետք չի։ Որ մարդիկ ծիծեռնակի պես այս տնից չվեն են տունը, են տնից չվեն են տունը, են մյուս տնից չվեն են տունը, որովհետև տան տերերը անսպար վարձը բարձրացնում են։ Անսպար։ Դուք շատ լավ գիտեք դրա մասին։ Հաջորդը հետո կասեմ։
Okay. Thank you. Please. I'm going to request that members of the audience curb their enthusiasm and not clap after the speakers. We will listen to everything you have to say, but once you start clapping, I'm going to have to take control and I may ask you to leave. So we want to hear you, but please don't clap after the speakers. We are on 8H, 1 and 2. It's been moved. It's been seconded.
There has not been a second yet on the record.
Mr. Carpetian?
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's take roll call. Or comment if you'd like to. The motion is out, so comments are still...
Just a short comment. I just want to make it clear that the funding, once again, the funding that's going to pay for this is not coming at the expense of something else. These are funds that are pre-allocated specifically for this type of activity, for this type of project. As far as creating bike lanes or somehow promoting the cyclist culture at the expense of drivers, I don't think it's at the expense of drivers. It's to complement the automobile culture that exists in the U.S. in general, but in the greater Los Angeles area in particular, and to promote more healthy lifestyle in the individual sense, in the global sense. And everyone's moving in that direction. I mean, everyone. 10 years ago, you wouldn't go to major U.S. cities and wouldn't see bike racks everywhere, where you can rent a bike, go from one point to the other, and return it there. But it's happening because, once again, the density of population is increasing. The transportation is unable to cope, as it exists today, is unable to cope with the denser population, with the higher population. So things like cycling and pedestrian and walking is becoming more and more important. So for that reason, I'm going to support this.
And Mr. Mayor, that's why I asked that question about the gas tax funds, and $680,000 of that $870,000 budget is going towards repaving the streets and street improvements. It's not all for bike lanes. So bike lane is part of it, but big chunk of these funds are going towards street improvement.
Okay, thank you. Let's take roll call.
Council members Devine?
Yes.
Friedman?
Yes.
Garpetian?
Yes.
Sinanian?
Yes.
Mayor Najarian?
Yes. Let's move on to the next part of this meeting.
Mayor and Council, next item is oral communications. This is a 5-minute portion. Discussion is limited time, is not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Council may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. City Manager may refer the matter to the appropriate department for investigation and report.
Okay, the first speaker is Tamara Movsesian. But before you begin, Mr. City Attorney, she's obviously spoken before and only speaks Armenian. What is our policy in that? Is it, Mr. Clerk, do we provide a translation later?
After the meeting, we've provided a transcript, or?
Yeah, we provide a transcript after the comments have been made. Unfortunately, we do not have simultaneous translation. So.
Does our closed caption put it in Armenian or no?
I am almost certain it is not.
It's only for...
Why don't we have a translator? I mean, I've seen other city council meetings in other cities where...
It's a policy decision by the council.
Okay, because they have...
By previous councils.
By previous councils, that's still in effect.
In other cities, it's pretty common to have a Spanish interpreter right there on the spot. So
it is.
Can we agendize that?
Yeah, please.
To bring it back and maybe talk about it?
Okay.
So I have a second on that.
Okay, so this speaker will... For those of you at home or in the audience, the speaker is likely to be speaking Armenian. A translation will be later obtained. I would I would do my best at translating Armenian, but I would make more mistakes and I would probably lose the flavor of her comments. And I wouldn't ask anyone else to put them on the spot to do that either.
Շատ լավ խոսում ես հայերեն, շատ լավ էլից հասկանում ես, շատ լավ ես հասկանում, ինչի չես ուզում թարգմանես,
She's asking me to translate, I just can't. No.
Բա երես, թարգմանի էլի,
No, my Armenian is very bad.
Իհարգանք ինձ, ոնցոն մեծ տարիքով կին,
So please try to speak please speak your best language and later we'll get it translated. Those that understand Armenian obviously have the advantage of
լավ, հաճ, ոչիչ, մեծը պտի զիջի, ես զիջում եմ, ես պադը դկարդերը խտրում եմ դայեք, բոլորը եթե կարելի է, հա, հերթով, ուշադիր նայեք, խնդրում եմ, բաղնիքն ասավ մեր, bathroom, everything.
This is your bathroom, ձեր բաղնիքն է?
Այո, մեր bathroom-ն է, մեր տան։ Այս խոհանոցի վենտիլյացիան է, չկա վենտիլյացիա։ Մի բան ժարի տեսանում իսկույն բանա։ Սա անձրևից կաթացել է կտուրը paper towel բադի տեղը, որ դնում է սաղ ջուր է դառնում։ Այս խոհանոցի հատակն է, գետինը, պոլը։ Այս վիճակում է իմ ապարտմենտը։ Սա խոհանոցի լվացարանն է, մի անգամ ես ինքս քերել եմ տարիներ առաջ, հետո ջուրը սկսեց կաթել, որտև այդ ծակ առաջացավ այդ մաքրածի տեղը, ծակից ջուրը թափում էր ներքև, գրացի Վիրջիլից սպիտակ այդ բանից առել եմ, բերել, նորից ես սկսել եմ, բայց ես արեստավոր չեմ, այդ շնորհքը չունեմ սարքելու։ Այս դռներն է, 1000-ից մեկը 3 դուր, որ իսկապես փակվում է, մնացած դռները չեն փակվում, խոհանոցի շկաֆերը։ Այս living room-ի պատալոկն է, էլի անձրևից ճաքել է սաղ։ Այս living room-ի էլեկտրական նույնությունն է, միացնում ես կայծատալիս պրոպկեքը գցում է։ Սա էլի էլեկտրական բաներն է, լարը չկա, դրա համար խոհանոցից երկարացրել եմ, բերել եմ, որ հեռախոսը աշխատի։ Սա սպալնյայի bedroom-ի լույսն է։ Կպցրել եմ, որ հանգարցակի ձեռս չկպնի չբանեմ, որտև կայծատալի էլի լույսերը լրիվ անջատվում է։ Սա լամպը, անընդհատ լամպոչկան փչանում է, էլի bathroom-ինն է։ Բադը չկա, հիթերը չի աշխատում, տարիները չի աշխատում, ծածկել եմ ձմերը, որ ցուրտը չգա, էլեկտրական բաներն կա, այս աշճաններն է մեր, 2 անգամ այս աշճանների վրա ընկել եմ, որտև սոտա տալի, են սև բաներից կպցրած չկա աշճանների վրա, մարդ ես, շատ եմ սենց դար, վատ աշճանները, հանգարց սայթակում ես, մի անգամ են առաջի հարկի տղանա բարձացել, երկրորդ անգամ վնասվեցի։ Ես էլ մեր պոչտան է, անապահով, անձրևի ժամանակ թրջվում ջուրա դառնում, եթե իսկույն չես նայ, որ հենց պաշտալոնը դնում է վերցնես, քամու ժամանակ է մի 2 անգամ ընկել է խոտերի վրա նամակները, լավ նկատել են, որ պոչտան եկել է, գնացել ենք, նամակները վերցրել ենք։ Այս պոչտան երբ որ չաշխա, հա բաները, էս էլ, էս իշտա։ Հա, այդ պոչտան էր։ Ահա։ Եղավ, հա, սա էլ դուրը, որ իմ տանտիրուհին, բարդ էր կաչը, որ հիթերը սարքեին, բայց պարզվեց այդ մարդը եկել է ինձ հետ կռիվ գցի։ Հələ ոչ միայն ինձ հետ կռիվ գցի, տղուս էլ էին զանգահարել։ Քոլեջ, ասել էին մերդ վտանգի մեջ է, շտապ արի տուն, որ տղայիս հետ էս մարդը կռիվ գցեր։ Հիշում եք, Արան Աջարյան, պատմել եմ դրա մասին, որ ինձ դատարան հասցրեց ոնց որ կրիմինալ էլեմենտ, որ քեզ նման թիկն է, հələ քեզ այնց է մի քիչ բոյով, Կոնչո գլխով ես իրան ծեծել էի 3 անգամից հասցրել է դատարան 3 անգամ տարվել է հիմա էլի ինձ հետապնդում է տան վարձն է մի բեդրում տան վարձը $1525 rent 1 bedroom apartment 1525 Հիմա ես խնդրում եմ որ էթերնին զբաղվի այս հարցով, որտեղ նախորդ էթերնին ինձ խոստացան, որ դատի է տալու մարտային, բայց Դրեյմանի գործի կապակցությամբ ինքը շուտ թոշակի կանցավ գնաց։ Հիմի ոչ մենեջերը, ոչ էթերնին թոշակի գնալու տարիքի չէ։ Երկուսն էլ լավ ջահել են, լավ էլ խելոք են։ Եղավ, էս էլ Rene Sadei 12 թվի inspection-ն է։
Thank you, Ms. Movsepian.
Your
time is up. Your time is up. Let me translate a little bit about what you said.
Մի հատ էլ խոսամ։
No.
No, դե ուրեմն տես, սրա համար Նեբերվուդ սերվիս ինձ այդ $2.20 էր ուզել։ Ես չտվեցի, վերջը Թախլակյան Ջոնն ա տվե, որ ես թուղթը ինձ տվել են։
Thank you. So I won't translate word for word, but the photos that she displayed were the conditions of her apartment. And she is basically commenting on the sad state of maintenance of the electrical, plumbing, roofing, etc. And so my question then to the city attorney is, can we refer her to a department? I mean, some of that stuff looks pretty bad to me. I don't want to jump to any conclusions about what the cause was, but is there something we can
We would normally go and do an inspection. Our inspector did go out, reported the information that reported to us is that her son refused to allow the inspector into the unit.
Well, is that
the
okay?
fight that she was talking about?
I don't know.
Well, her son
refused to allow the inspector in. He said to call Tamara. And so we're aware of it. We just need to get access to the unit.
Okay, I have a hunch there may have been a language, a communication problem.
The son spoke English to our inspector.
Let's try one more time.
Yes, sir.
I mean, those conditions do look pretty bad. So,
okay.
Aram, if you could tell her off camera that we are going to again try to have an inspector document these problems and then take the appropriate action. Okay, the next speaker is Navart. Is Navart here? Okay. If she comes in, we'll bring her back. Mike Mohill.
City attorney. I think
No, Ms.
you կզբաղվի այդ հարցով։
Yes, we're gonna have someone help you with that problem. Thank you.
Ապրեք։ Thank you.
Mercy.
Good evening, council members. Chapter 4, the game of chess. The last time I came before this council, it appeared that a game of chess was being played amongst our city council members, city manager, and Glendale City College staff. Sadly, the affected residents in the area are going to be played as a pawn in this game of chess. Since June 2014, our city council members and city manager, Scott Ochoa, have been negotiating with Glendale Community College to sell as a package the historic Glendale Civic Auditorium with parking lots 30 and 31 at the corner of Mountain and Verdugo. Last week, Councilwoman Friedman purposely acted naive when telling our city manager that she did not know the college intentions to build a 4 to 5 story parking structure with 655 spaces at parking lot 31. Also, Mr. Ochoa acted naive and misled the public as if he did not know the intentions of the college trustees. Mr. Ochoa stated he had a verbal commitment from the college president that there were no intentions to build a parking structure at parking lot 31. Mr. Ochoa, since when does anyone accept a verbal commitment as a contract? Your statement contradicted the November 17, 2015 college report. Mr. Ochoa further stated our historic Glendale Civic Auditorium was old, needed to be updated, and was operating at a loss. However, Mr. Ochoa took no responsibility for its lack of promotion and rentals. Mr. Ochoa, I never knew a historic building already bought and paid for by the taxpayers had to make a profit. Mr. Ochoa, for many years we have been subsidizing the historic Alex Theater to a tune of over $500,000 annually. This year, the theater reported a profit. Mr. Ochoa, does this profit include the $500,000 annual subsidy? Should one read the college 455-page staff report dated November 17, 2015, especially pages 130 through 160, one could see the intent of the trustees. If the college acquired Lot 31 near the Civic Auditorium, then the trustees plan on building a mammoth 4 to 5 story, 655 parking structure topped with lighted tennis courts and high-intensity lights. But let's be honest. For the college to spend $3 to $4 million for Lot 31 and leave it with only 150 parking spaces makes no financial sense. That means each parking space would be valued about $26,000. Should the college build their huge parking structure, it would be an eyesore in the neighborhood. Mr. Ochoa, do you guarantee the college will not build a 4 or 5 story parking structure at Lot 31, as well as Lot 30, located behind the Armenian Catholic Church? Like the Civic Auditorium, the parking structure side lot would only be about 13 feet from the Glendale Wash. However, the proposed Armenian American Museum would be over 100 feet from the Wash and about the same height as the existing Civic Auditorium. Council members, on another matter. One always knows when it's campaign season, when our politicians start pandering to their constituents. Last week, Councilman Friedman publicly announced that she wanted to help the concerned residents of Shoal Canyon to secure zero waste management at the local landfill. Mrs. Friedman, as a resident of Shoal Canyon, you're voting 100% for all new downtown construction with over 4,000 apartments will create more trash and cause the landfill to fill up sooner. Your actions have decreased the life expectancy of our landfill. Today, these big developers are contributing thousands of dollars to your run for the 43rd Assembly District. You know, if you were running again for council, you could not accept campaign contributions from people with whom you are doing city business. Your union supporters appreciate the revenue generated from the landfill, which pays for their bloated salaries and their bloated pensions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mohill. Albert Hoffman.
Good evening, Mayor and Jerry and council members and staff and the public especially. You have to disregard everything that you just heard about what the college is going to do on the property that he talked about. The purchase of the Civic Auditorium and all the lots associated with it are under negotiation at this time. There's nothing firm done. But Dr. Vire, the president of the college, has released a report that I sent to you, the final report, that there are no plans to build any kind of parking structure anywhere. They want to retain the parking lots that are there because they need them as they are. They don't need more than that. But there's no plan for 10 years. The final plan came out, which I think you all got. And I understand, well, no, that's the way it is. That's the final plan. For 10 years, nothing's going to happen. I've been the chairman of the Bond Oversight Committee for Measure G funding. We have money left, and we have to decide every year as we work this. The Oversight Committee is responsible to make sure that the funds are spent according to what the college had appropriated from a bond. We cannot spend it on other things. We can't invest it or anything. We have to spend it for buildings. We just completed the big student services building, which ran into a lot of construction problems, and it is finished. It will be probably open for the summer session. They will have students in that building. But we have absolutely no plans to build this. The Oversight Committee, we study all the potential things that we can spend money on for the benefit of the college. We're investigating expanding the Garfield campus. That looks like it may be a better way to go to get more classes that we need, that we're looking into having more trades kind of studies and that sort of thing, vocational programs, which the public really wants. And believe me, the college is an enterprise for the city of Glendale. It's a great institution. I went there, and a lot of people benefit by it, and you do have to recognize it is worthwhile to all of Glendale to have that college. And I'm personally working on some plans on how to ease the traffic. And there's plans that I think are feasible that we can work with the city on to improve traffic flow to enter the parking lots and the campus. So please, public, everybody that heard the presentation, we're not building anything as was announced. Thank you.
Thank you. Shake Esmaili.
Բարի երեկո, ես պիտի հայերեն խոսամ։ Արդեն դուք ծանոթ եք մեր հարցին, Ֆորմանթրի Նորթ Ադամսի ապարտմանից եմ խոսում, և մոտ 60 յունիտ ապարտման շատ մարդիկ մտահոգված են այս խնդիրով։ Եվ մենք պիտի շարունակենք մեր գալը և չենք սպասում այդ պատասխանին, որ Glendale-ը rent control չունի։ Glendale-ը ինչու չի պիտի rent control ունի։ Ուրեմն, մեր բան ենք կարող ասենք, որոշված է, որ մեզ իսև 30 տարի առաջ մենք եկանք, Glendale-ը հիմա շինվավ, սարկվավ, բժիշկներ տվանք, կրթված զավակներ տվանք Glendale-ին, տեղարան, ամեն ինչ, մեր քաղաքը բարգավաճանք, հիմա մեզի հրում են դեպի օտար գյուղաքաղաք, որ ընդեղը ոտի կանգնացենք, բայց դա հնարավոր չի, մի հատ ընտանիքի մուվանելը 50-ից 6,000 դոլարի պատմություն է, և էդի հիմա այս մեր շրջապատի բոլոր արևանները այդ ի վիճակի չենք, որ կարողանանք այդ քայլը վերցնենք։ Մեկը մեծահասակ մայր ունի, մյուսը դպրոցական զավակներ ունի, մեկի ամուսինը չի գործում։ Շատ լավ է, որ դուք մտածում եք հոմլեսների համար, բայց մտածեք, որ արդեն մենք պատվավոր հոմլես ենք ելնում։ Եվ դա շատ ավեսլի մի բան է, որ իսև կարելի է, $500, $400 մի անգամից մի հատ վարձը տանեն վրև և պատասխաններն ენი, որ Glendale-ը կոնտրոլ չունի։ Եվ ինքը մեզի այդ պատասխանը տա, ով որ չի ուզում, էդ է։ 18 տարի է ես այդ շենքում ապրում եմ, և իմ նմանները շատերը։ Եվ որտեղ լետում եմ նույն պատմությունն է, 6 ամսից հետո նորից կարելի է նորից նույն բան ինձ համար պատահի, և դա հնարավոր չի ապրելու։ Մենք ամբողջ այս ընտանիք ենք հիմա, բոլորս միասին շենքում ընտանիք ենք, մտահոգ ենք այդ հարցով, մի հոգու հարց չի, երկու հոգու հարց չի, և ես կարծում եմ բոլոր Glendale, դուրս արեք մարդկանց վշտերը, դժվարությունները տեսեք, Շատ լավ է, որ դուք մտածում եք ամեն ինչի համար, դա մեր քաղաքի բարգավաճման համարն է, բայց տեսեք մարդիկ ուրիշ բաներով են տառապում։ Մենակ այդ չի որ Glendale-ը մաքուր պահենք, այո, այդ մեր պարծանքն է, բայց մի մոռացեք, ամեն մարդ այդ է մտածում, որ որոշված է, այդ է ցույց տալի, որ որոշեք մեզից սրեք։ Մեր դասակարգ, միջին դասակարգի մարդիկ կապ չունի կրթության, որտեղ շատ բարձրագույն կրթություններ ունեն մեր երեխեքը, մենք բոլորս։ Որ այդանք հիմա բանը Սամվելին բարգավաճենք, ընդեղը լավ սերուն տանենք, այդ էլ վատ չի։ Բայց մի մոռացեք, մենք այս քաղաքում ամեն մարդ 30-ից 35 տարի չարչարանքով ապրել ենք եւ լավ սերունդ ենք ներկայացրել Glendale-ին։ Փաստաբաններ, դոկտորներ, լավ խանութներ, շուկաներ, Ամերիկանայի կես ժողովուրդը հայ է։ Ուրեմն մենք հայերս ձայն չունենք, մենք ձեզանից պահանջում ենք մեզ պաշտպաներն եք։ Պաշտպաներն եք, կարող է ձեզ համար դժվար արծա, բայց կառուցվում է շենքեր, ամեն մեր շենքը մեր ննջարանի $3000, դա բիզնեսմենների համար, մեր համար չի, կառուցեք low income ընտանիքների համար տներ, մեծահասակների համար ավելի շատ։ Չենք կարող հոմլեսերն ենք մենք պատվով մարդիկ ենք, բայց բարի բուն իմաստով սենք շարունակվի, ես օրը մեջ emergency եմ հեր, որտեղ մտածում եմ, ինչ ծեպ պիտի էլի մեր ամենի վիճակը, ես մենակ իմ համար չեմ խոսում, 60 unit մարդ կա, որը ասենք 150 հոգի են, ուսանող ունեն, մեծահասակ ունենք, չի կարելի մենակ մեզի ասեք, որ Glendale red control չունի, հասկանալի է, բայց այս մետեք պիտի ստապ ուտի, մետեք պիտի կանգ առնի, մետեք պիտի ժողովրդի ցավը տեսնեք դուք, տարապում են մարդիկ, ես ուզում եմ տունից դուրս գամ, որտե՞ղ եմ, մատ 92 տարեկան պարավկին կա հետս, ես եմ ու մայրս, որտե՞ղ եմ, իմ նման շատերը, խնդրում եմ ձեզանից, մեկի չհետատևեք այս հարցը, մենակ մեզի այդ պատասխանը մի տվեք, որ Glendale-ը չի rent control չունի, և տանտերը իրան ցույց չտա բոլորովին մեզի, որ և այդ պատասխանը տա, որ ով չի ուզում գնա, որտե՞ղ ենք, ամեն տեղ նույն պատմությունն է, ամեն տեղ նույն պատմությունն է, շնորհակալ չեմ։
Rebecca Holden.
Good evening, council members. I've been asked to read this letter, which was jointly written by and in behalf of the residents of 413 North Adams Street. As of early January, our building was sold to Pacific Real Estate. Pacific Real Estate immediately gave notice of a rental increase. Beginning April 1st, our rent will be increased drastically by $450 a month. Unfortunately, in order to get a better price for the building, the previous owner had already raised it by $100 a month in late last year. We are aware Glendale has no rent control. However, a 25% a month rate increase, which is over $500 a month, in less than a few months, but in less than 1 year, bringing the rent to $2,050 a month, seems outrageous and unfair. A large percentage of the families living in our building solely rely on Social Security, and that's barely enough to get by. This increase is effectively forcing longtime residents to suffer expensive moves on short notice and to not only move out of the building but likely out of the city of Glendale, our home. The residents in our building and in our community strongly supported you in the election and now need your help. We would like you to protect us from these unfair practices through any means available to you, up to and including rent control. Council members, we ask you to make a positive difference in our lives. We ask you to move quickly as the April 1st deadline approaches quickly. We ask that you support us, your constituents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Did Navart ever come back? Okay, no, that concludes my cards that we have for oral communication.
We have a large group of residents here, I assume from the same building, and they were here last week. And the rent increase that they're facing is really unconscionable. I mean, that's an incredible increase. You know, you're talking a 30%, 25-30% increase, but it's happening in April. What can we do? I mean, I think even if we were to do rent control, which I'm not saying that we should, but we could never do it by April. So is there any state law that protects them? Is there anything that can protect them against this kind of thing?
Members of the council, Councilmember Friedman, as drastic as it does seem, unfortunately, the regulations we currently have on the books don't govern this situation, and I think you're right. It would be difficult to, even if the council wanted to consider it, to have that enforced by March or April. So essentially, as you know, we don't have a rent control ordinance on our books that will limit, or a rent stabilization ordinance that would limit these types of increases. And so, short of such a regulation,
if we adopted one, let's say tomorrow, even since they've already been given notice, would you be able to? Would there even be the ability to? You know,
frankly, I haven't looked at it closely enough to see what sort of regulations or what type of effectiveness we could put in it, whether it could be retroactive, whether we could put it going forward, to how much notice we have to give property owners. We just haven't. It's not an issue we've looked at closely in quite some time. But I would submit to you that it would be very difficult, certainly, to make it retroactive. That way.
That's a good question.
Mr. Karpetian.
Yes, obviously this is a huge issue at this time in the community, for some segment of the community, because this is a domino effect of the developments when the rents go up tremendously when you build 3,000-4,000 units, which, you know, that's a different topic, but because the rents are really high, it affects the average Joe rentals as well. In early 2000s, we had a proposal of rent mediation program that was proposed by Glendale Apartment Association, and I want to know if that association still exists. It doesn't exist, and in this document that I have in my hand, it was, I don't know if this was passed or not, or this was just a review, because it says rent mediation program, which should include a council-appointed commission to hear and consider appeals of rent increases which might be considered excessive, which is this case. This doesn't say rent control, but it says consider the rent increases which might be considered excessive. And I want to know if this thing is in our books or not, what happened to the association, what was done after all this work was done, because this came to council. And this would have been the case that every time they had an excessive rent increase, they could go to arbitration maybe. There's a group that is formed by citizens or a retired judge or what have you. I want to get some information on this and see. It's not an immediate remedy for the issue that you have, because I'm aware of another building, I don't know if it's the same owner or not, that purchased a building north of Glen Oaks, and the rents went up tremendously. Even the people who had had a lease, there's so much construction going on that they moved out. They couldn't even stay until the end of their own term. So I think we need to talk about this issue as to if there is this mediation opportunity available for public to mediate situations like this. If they increase the rent once a year, $100, $200, everybody will understand because everything is going up. But $500 in a year in 2 months, I think is very excessive. So I want to get some information on that and see what was done and what could be done.
Yes, sir. That program, I believe, goes back to 2002. Really, the last time you saw a major groundswell of the call for rent control, it was done as a pilot. We will go back and pull the archive to see what ultimately transpired, but to the extent that the association kind of fell by the wayside, this was a bit of as you look back at the file, as an effort by the Apartment Owners Association to stave off rent control. So what we can do is go back through the file, find for you the evaluation reports, and see if the program that you're describing that was brought before the council, what ultimately was it successful and how it was evaluated, and bring it back to council for your review.
Right, and this was done by the apartment owners. It was not done by it was not done from the renter side to protect only the renters. It was done only the tenants. It was done by the apartment building owners, just to be fair to everybody, basically. So.
Your microphone.
Right.
So I guess they did it for their own protection because the alternative they faced was rent control. So maybe we do shake a stick a little bit because this is outrageous, obviously, increasing rent by $500. It's
right. So
highway robbery.
Again, when can we get some information back to council on this issue?
The record is actually pretty robust in terms of everything that was done in 01 and 02. So I would hope that we can have kind of a larger study paper for you, a white paper that gives you the historical perspective and see where it all left off relatively shortly, maybe by that first meeting of March.
First meeting of March. Okay, and also let's find out if the Apartment Owners Association still exists.
No, it does not.
Doesn't, then we have to see what we can do. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Mr. Garcia, I've heard from these residents last week and this week, and although I haven't seen the condition of their apartments, have formed the opinion that the rent increase is unconscionable. Is it appropriate to prepare a letter from the City Council or from the Mayor, or individual letters from the City Council to this new owner expressing our outrage at his exercise of his rights to raise rent to this extent?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, if it wants to come from you, we can certainly prepare something to send. I think we want to be a little careful on the language we use, but I certainly can express the concern of the council related to the rent increase and asking them to look at all available alternatives.
I'm happy to sign on to it.
Well, so, if you want, we can bring it back.
Is there a Brown Act problem?
If you all sign, I mean, in my view, no, but others view it as an issue.
Bring something back.
Sure. Maybe at the same time that we
need to put it on the calendar, on the agenda, maybe as a resolution.
Sure.
If it's better to get it out quickly, I mean, I don't mind you sending it as the mayor.
Absolutely.
Rather than having a discussion about it right here, I'd rather just either.
Okay, why don't you prepare something, and then I'll make sure that everyone sees what that is.
We have 2 weeks until next meeting, so can it be on the 23rd?
He doesn't need to have it approved by us to send a letter.
Not if he's saying no, he doesn't. Microphone.
I'd hate to commit to that based on all of the information. If that's the council's direction, we can reprioritize. But if you look at that 23rd agenda, there's a number of items that are on it.
Well, he doesn't need our permission to send a letter.
He's talking about the other items, the follow-up items. I'll prepare for the mayor's. The mayor and I will collaborate on it, and unless the council has an objection and wants it to come to full council.
Oh.
May I also ask you or your staff to refer these tenants to Neighborhood Legal Services?
Absolutely.
To review their rights.
Okay.
In terms of a unified opposition.
We'll reach out to them tomorrow.
To this type. And this always was a fear of mine. In fact, when I used the word gentrification a year or so ago, our former planning director laughed at me and said, "Oh, gentrification will never come to Glendale." But I think what we see here is a winnowing out of our middle class and our lower middle class and our lower class residents. We don't want them to move to Sunland or Sun Valley, even though they're nice cities. As the lady said, she said it in Armenian, that they grew up here, their children were raised here. So I think we're all concerned about that.
And
we just don't have the tools at our disposal to adequately prevent that from happening.
And I don't want to open up a conversation, obviously not the proper time, but someone has to explain to me how increasing the supply of available apartments somehow resulting in how that's causing the increase in the rents in already existing apartments. Supply-demand situation, I'm having difficulty reconciling.
Beyond that, this is also happening in areas that haven't added a lot of housing. It's happening in a lot of places in Los Angeles. That's one of the reasons there's so many homeless people in Los Angeles. It's one of the reasons there's, that there's a crisis all around Los Angeles. It's not happening more in areas that are adding housing. It's kind of a problem all over, unfortunately. And we're seeing the tip of the iceberg. I suspect that this is not going to be the last we're going to see of this.
I just wanted to make sure that this is not the same apartment that the first speaker was talking about. No, it is.
So Ms. Movsesian's apartment.
This is
Ms. Movsesian lives in your building.
in your building. So all of their.
She does.
No, she doesn't.
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
She lives in another building.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for letting us know about your difficulties. We have no other business. There's no new business.
Motions to adjourn.
Move to second.
We're adjourned.